Chair, you have a live mic.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
You're well, sir.
right.
You?
Oh, great. I say good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning.
Yo, Lima, I'm talking to you. Give me a big hello. There you go. Follow her lead. Okay. Glad you're here. We got a lot of business to get to today. So let's start with our invocation and then our pledge.
Yes, today's invocation by Rabbi Amos Chorny of Beth Tikva Synagogue.
Good morning. Before my remarks today, I want to acknowledge a personal milestone. Today marks 10 years since I've been given the honor of coming before you and fulfilling this important duty. To you all, I thank you. Dear members of the County Commission and fellow citizens, as we assemble here today to conduct the business of our community, let us take a moment to reflect on the responsibility we bear to serve our fellow citizens with fairness and dedication towards the betterment of the community. Master of the universe, we ask you for guidance and wisdom that, in a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect, we be able to set aside our differences, striving in concert and mutual respect toward our common goals, and reach the important decisions we are called to make, which impact the lives of so many, of maintaining a safe, prosperous, and equitable environment for all. Let us be mindful of the challenges we face and the opportunities that lie ahead. Let us be inspired to rise to the occasion, to make a positive difference in the lives of those we serve. We offer this prayer in a spirit of humility and gratitude, recognizing the great privilege and responsibility that comes with the honor of serving our community. Amen.
Amen. One of our proclamations this morning is going to be to recognize National Correctional Officers Week, and I know we've got a bunch in the back, but we're going to have one of our correctional officers come forward here and lead us in the pledge. Is it Chief Roberts?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. It's all yours.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, County Manager, over to you. Approval of minutes.
Chair, agenda changes for
Okay.
April 25th, 2023. We have several.
Okay.
We have first is move item 17E to 9B. This is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners proposing an amendment to the Collier County Growth Management Plan, Ordinance 89-05 as amended, specifically amending the future land use element and future land use map and map series to add the US 41 East overlay to allow certain economic development uses within the corridor segments and allow increased height and density and certain economic development uses in regional centers and community centers through incentives, and amending the transportation element and maps to expand the South US 41 transportation concurrency exception area, and furthermore directing transmittal of the proposed amendments to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. This item is being moved to the regular agenda at Commissioner LaCastro, McDaniel, Hall, Kowal, and Saunders' separate requests. Moving item 17F to 9C. This is an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners amending Ordinance 8905 as amended, the Collier County Growth Management Plan of the unincorporated area of Collier County, Florida, relating to the Rural Fringe Mixed Use District restudy, and specifically amending the future land use element and the future land use map and map series to require transfer of development rights for comprehensive plan amendments for increased residential density in the urban mixed-use district and the rural fringe mixed-use district, amending the urban mixed-use district urban residential fringe subdistrict to remove the density bonus cap on residential infill, and remove the requirement to use transfer of development rights within 1 mile of the urban boundary, and amending the rural fringe mixed-use district of the future land use element to change development standards and requirements, increase density on receiving lands for affordable housing, add transfer of development right credits, add uses in receiving areas, and add a conditional use for recreation in sending lands, and to amend development standards for rural villages and create the Bell Mead Hydrologic Enhancement Overlay, and to correct the Scrivener's error for the Immokalee Road Rural Village Overlay on the future land use map, and furthermore directing transmittal of the adopted amendments to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and providing for an effective date. This item is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Hall, and Commissioner Hall's separate requests. Move item 16C7 to 11E. This item was continued from the December 10th, 2022 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to approve an agreement for sale and purchase with Whisk Investment Company, LLC, for .39 acres under the Conservation Collier Land Acquisition Program at a cost not to exceed $432,600. This move is at staff's request. Move item 16F3 to 11F. This is a recommendation to approve a fifth amendment to the Facilities Management Agreement 21-7898 with Sports Facilities Management LLC to amend the budget to reflect increased cost of goods from $488,928 to $889,365, increased revenues from $1,389,743 to $1,922,474, and authorize the chairman to sign the amendment and authorize all necessary budget amendments. This item is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel and Commissioner LaCastro's separate requests, and this item will be heard immediately following item 5A, which is our update on the sports complex. Move item 16C5 to 11G. This is a recommendation to approve the second amendment to agreement number 15-6365 for FEMA acceptable debris removal for disaster-generated debris with Ashbrit Inc., doing business as Ashbrit Environmental, to increase the fee schedule rates 7% effective on the renewal date of January 12th, 2023, and authorize the chairman to sign the amendment. Item 10A will be heard time certain at 10 a.m. This is a recommendation to approve a sixth amendment to the long-term lease and operating agreement for the Golf and Entertainment Complex with CCBSG Naples LLC to extend the financing contingency period to June 30th, 2023. Item 12A, to be heard no sooner than 3 o'clock. This is a recommendation to approve and authorize the chairman to execute a mediated settlement agreement with La Minnesota Riviera LLC and the Riviera Golf Estates Homeowners Association, Inc. for settlement of a Burt Harris claim filed pursuant to Florida Statutes 70.001 related to application of the county's golf course conversion ordinance on the Riviera Golf Course. And continue item 16D1 to the May 29th, 2023 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $100,000 to transfer funding within the Countywide Capital Fund 301 to continue funding e-book collections to meet patron demand for digital resources and materials for Collier County Public Libraries. This move is at Commissioner McDaniel's request. And finally, items 11B, 11C, and 11D will be heard together no sooner than 2:30 p.m. This is the first amendment to the developer agreement with Rural Neighborhoods, long-term ground lease with Rural Neighborhoods, and State Housing Initiative partnership sponsor agreements for construction of rental housing units at the Golden Gate Golf Course. With that, County Attorney, any further changes?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Commissioners, ex parte on the summary and consent, and any changes. Commissioner
Okay,
LaCastro.
we'll start with Commissioner Colwell. Do you have any changes or ex parte?
No changes and no ex parte on summary or consent.
Okay, Commissioner Saunders.
I have no changes and also no ex parte.
Okay, Commissioner Hall.
I have one meeting on 9A, none on 17A.
Consent and summary only.
Oh,
Okay, so just
none then.
Commissioner McDaniel.
No changes nor any ex parte.
Okay, and I have no changes and no ex parte either.
It's written down.
We accept the agenda and the
Can I
minutes.
get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next.
Troy, did we have a speaker on the?
We had a registered speaker for a consent agenda item, but they're not on Zoom at this point.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I just want to say to my colleagues and really to folks, we got a large crowd here and sometimes maybe you haven't been at every single meeing. I want to really thank my colleagues for, as they always do, really diving into the agenda. And when something is moved as a change and pulled off of summary or consent, oftentimes it means one of us or all of us have an issue, and summary or consent just takes one vote, and then it approves what appears to be like a million things, kind of like they do in Washington, D.C. We don't do that here. And so, really applaud all the commissioners for when they see something on the agenda that they have a lot of questions on, they pull it. But also times we pull things because we want to give it positive visibility rather than just a blanket vote and say, oh, we just approved some great and wonderful thing. We pull it because we want to discuss it. We want to thank staff. We also do want to give public any comment, but they're pulled for two totally separate reasons. But I actually like when I see a big change sheet because it means we've all dug into it, we've all read it, and we're all here to talk about it, and we're not trying to get out by lunch. We're trying to do the work of the county. So we've got a lot of things that we pulled today for various reasons, and
Well,
I
Mr. Chair,
appreciate
some
it.
of us are trying to get out by lunch.
Okay, well, maybe Commissioner McDaniels, so I thank you all for digging into that. We got some real hot topics. With a large crowd too, I also want to say, please silence your cell phones. Okay, some of you might not come in here a lot, so we don't want to hear, all your different, songs and what have you. And then also, we expect to have a lot of public speakers on different areas today. We keep this a very professional type of meeting, so it's not the Jerry Springer show, okay? So when somebody gets their 3 minutes up here, give them the respect that you are hoping to get when you get your 3 minutes up here. So there's not cheering and hooting and hollering and whatnot. We don't do that anymore, okay? We run a professional meeting. We want to hear from everybody on all sides so that we can render the best decision for the county. And it'll always be something that not everyone agrees with, but the one thing we all want to agree with is this is a professional meeting from professional people that are respectful regardless of what your side of the equation is. So we really appreciate that. And, we've had some really, really great, fruitful, and valuable meetings in here on some really heavy and controversial topics, but I really thank the folks that have sat in those seats before you who have done just that. So we want to continue that trend, and we don't want to hear your happy birthday song on your cell phone, if it goes off or whatnot. So we appreciate that as well. Thank you. All right, what's next?
Commissioners, that moves us to awards and recognitions. Our 20-year awardee is not here today, so we will try to catch her on the next meeting. So that moves us to 25 years. Our first 25-year attendee is David Shalick, Branch Library Manager.
How about that?
Thank you. 25-year Glenn. Congratulations, sir.
25 years.
Yeah.
Congrats. Young member when I started.
Yeah. Hey, right here, sir. Right here in the position of honor. Right here.
Picture time, 3.
Should we quiz them on that? Dewey Decimal System and all that, right? Come on, you should be an expert on that, right? Hey, congratulations. Damn.
25 years, Dana Alger, Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Recycling Coordinator.
All right.
You did good. You did good.
25 years, Mary Jo Brock, County Manager's Office, Management Analyst 1.
Oh, this young lady could tell some stories. Would you like the mic? Would you like to tell us a few things about anybody? You have to take to the grave? Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Mary Jo.
That brings us to item 4, proclamations. 4A is a proclamation designating May 4th, 2023 as National Day of Prayer, to be accepted by Pastor Grant Thigpen, Pastor Jesse Barrett, and other leaders of the faith community.
Tell Pastor Dwayne, he needs to step it up.
We're giving them this to try to re-energize them, get them involved in stuff. Pastor, would you like to say a couple of words of wisdom or give us something? Come on, you always have something, right? If you go to the podium there and if you'd like.
I'd rather do it in private.
You can do. Oh, is there? Oh, our confessions. Okay.
We confess.
I just want you to know we pray for all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item 4B is a proclamation designating April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day, to be accepted by Susan Abreu and her therapy dog, Nanny.
Come on, Nanny.
That smells
You want to do a walkabout?
There you go.
Good morning.
Turn around and smile.
All right.
Item 4C is a proclamation designating May 2023 as National Safe Boating Week, to be accepted by Richard Hurd, Flotilla Staff Officer, Public Affairs, Partner Visitation, and other distinguished guests of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Marco Island, Florida.
Sir, thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, if anybody want to say a few words, totally up to you. Okay, keep moving. Got a lot to go.
It's quiet.
Just looking like you wanted to talk.
Item 4D is a proclamation designating May 7th through 13th, 2023 as National Correctional Officers Week, to be accepted by Chief Chris Roberts, Chief Mark Middleton, Captain Keith Harmon, Captain Doris Canaday, Director Katina Boza, and other correctional officers and Naples Jail Center staff.
Thank
We never want to know these people on a first name basis. We thank them for what they do, right?
Snuggle.
Oh,
All right, here we go. Ready? And smile on 3. 1, 2, and 3. We got one more photo. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Chief Middlebrook. On behalf of Sheriff Rambosk, Under Sheriff Bloom, who are both tied up with Senator Scott, I want to thank you for this recognition. This recognition is for more than 300 hardworking, dedicated professional members of the Corrections Division. They are the best because this county deserves the best. While we do a formal proclamation for 1 week, know that we appreciate their efforts every day. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Item 4E is a proclamation designating May 2023 as Military Appreciation Month in Collier County, to be accepted by Major Jessica R. Stearns, U.S. Air Force, VFW Post 7721, U.S. Army Officer Candidate Alicia Starova, Collier County Veterans Council, Tyler King, U.S. Air Force, Parental Alienation Southwest Florida Support Group, and Laura Veith, U.S. Marine Corps, Avow Coffee with Veterans.
That's the military way, right? Well, I'm told. Sure.
On behalf of all the veterans groups, Collier County, which I'm active with most of them, and want to thank you for all of your support and continued future support, because we have many veterans who are in need of shelter, in need of healing, and we do need that assistance. So thank you very much again for this honor.
Thanks, Major.
Item 4F is a proclamation designating May 2023 as National Bike Month, to be accepted by Skip Riffle, President and Founder, Bikes for Tykes, Inc.
A little hot, yeah.
43,000 bikes. That's what you do. Thank you. That was my friend. Always your friend, my friend. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Thanks so much. This is Dave Pascal, my vice president. Not that big a step.
Baby steps, Simon says.
Yeah, it's like, give the guy a break, huh?
Here we go. Can you tilt that proclamation for me just a little bit forward? There you go. Perfect. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Yeah. One more photo. 1, 2, 3.
did you want to say anything, or it's totally up to you? Yep.
To the mic. Pick a mic.
Bikes for Tags have been serving Collier County now for 39 years. We've given away over 43,000 bikes to those in need. And we've noticed that on the weekends, you see all these lines of bicycles shooting down our road, but you don't see any family units. So May the 14th, Sugden Park, we're putting on a bicycle event where families can come out and ride around and experience the wonders of our Sugden Park. And please tell your friends, and we hope to see you all out there having fun. Thank you.
Item 4G is a proclamation designating May 2023 as National Foster Care Awareness Month, to be accepted by Rick Jacobs, Executive Director for Kids, Southwest Florida.
Rick, did you want to say anything if you'd like? Totally up to you.
On behalf of all the foster care organizations, we're honored to serve this great community of Southwest Florida. At 4Kids, we focus on hope, homes, and healing. So hope is that aspect of getting in on the front end and trying to keep families together before they enter foster care. Homes is obvious. We want to provide a home for every child that enters foster care in our community. 27 children yesterday morning needed a home. And then healing, providing trauma-informed therapy to those kids that enter care and providing that hope and healing for their families as well. So we thank you for the privilege of serving the less fortunate of this community.
Item 4H is a proclamation designating April 2023 as National Fair Housing Month, to be accepted by Angela Edison, Director of Housing, Collier County Housing Authority.
Love you. You do here, you're talking when you should have been listening. Angela caught you.
There you go, perfect. On three. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Dunsky. Angie, you want to say something?
On the behalf of Collier County Housing Authority, we want to thank you so very much. It's a true honor because this is special because we actually practice this. And that speaks volumes for our county. So we thank you so very much for your support. Thank you.
Angela. Thank you.
Commissioners, if we could get a motion to approve the proclamations, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 5A is a recommendation to accept an update on the Paradise Coast Sports Complex from Sports Facilities Management, LLC. Mr. Adrian Moses is here to present. Are we having somebody? Oh, sorry, Adrian. Are we having somebody else up? Okay. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Adrian Moses, General Manager for the Paradise Coast Sports Complex on behalf of Sports Facilities Companies. It's my honour to serve at the pleasure of the of Collier County running the sports complex. Wanted to come here today to share with the commissioners and with the rest of the county quite simply the remarkable success that we've had this fiscal year so far, with a year that literally started with a hurricane. The facility was fully booked in October, and unfortunately we had to cancel everything in October. That didn't hold us back. We went after things that had been displaced by the hurricane and helping out our friends and colleagues in Lee County as well. We were able to rebook the facility in October and actually do more than we had projected to do in October. So I guess I should flip this on. So what essentially could have been seen as a challenge to the start of the year, we saw it as an opportunity. And that's really the theme of what I'm going to present to you guys today, is that every opportunity that presents itself to us, we track it down and we see if we can make something of it. And you'll see that we've been pretty successful with that. Troy, am I... Okay, thank you. The first slide shows the increase in foot traffic at the complex on year to date. You may recall that we took over the management of the facility a week before Thanksgiving in 2021. In that first year, we made $1 million in revenue, and we also saved the county over $1 million in the subsidy on the previous operating year with the previous operating company. So we're showing numbers against ourselves now, even though that first full year we inherited a lot of contracts, a lot of agreements, and a lot of gaps in the schedule as well, which we did our best to fill. And you can see that the increase in the foot traffic has increased based upon our robust calendar that we booked so far this year. What I would also add here is that a lot of the larger tournaments that we have, we utilise Alima and James's team to use the other county parks in Collier, Big Corkscrew and North Collier. We only have 5 fields available to us, so there's 8 at North Collier. So when we do these large tournaments, we don't see the foot traffic at the complex, even though we have brought the foot traffic to Collier County and we put people in the hotels for those events. So that is a good indication of the amount of people that are coming to the complex, both during the week with our local programming, our standard community events that we do around the holidays, plus the weekly events that I'll share with you all, if you don't already know, with that a bit later. As I mentioned, it was a difficult start to the year in terms of the weather for everyone. We were used as a site for law enforcement and a rescue and recovery service. We supported law enforcement agencies from around the state, which we were happy to do. We were proud to do. We were able to get the Peace River Conference Football Championships playoffs, which were going to be elsewhere, but we lent ourselves to them because all of the events that we had to cancel because the hotels that in the area were being used to take on the people coming to help us, the workers that were helping us. It was quite a fun time as well. We had a wedding that was taken from an event venue in Lee County, and we did that with us. And we also got ourselves back to normality. There was very little in the way of damage to the complex. We literally could have been open the next day after the storm, and we were for the law enforcement agencies. But save a gate and an awning and a few dented benches, that was it for us. So we were very, very fortunate for that. And that also comes down to a very robust plan that was put in place by my operations director through our operating manual of preparing the facility for such a storm. to limit any impact of that. Into November, we had essentially what was our largest event that we've ever had was the DSNAP event over 3 days of the Florida families. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but we had a food stamp collection event where we saw 33,000 families come to the sports complex to redeem and collect food stamps after the storm. We then moved into more normality. Alliance Cup was an over 200-team soccer tournament. And then the Gulf Coast Runners Thanksgiving 5K, which is traditionally in the city of Naples, was relocated to us with over 3,500 runners on site enjoying the complex on Thanksgiving morning. That was a really fun event and one that we can look to replicate. Into December, and it began in an incredibly busy way with us partnering with our colleagues at the Parks and Recs department with Snowfest. We sold 3,500 tickets to this event, and then we had an additional 3,000 walk up for a total of 6,500 people for Collier County Snowfest. This was in the stadium featuring snow, vendors, bounce houses for the kids, music, and we also showed a movie, which I'll come to later on the big screen. We moved into the rest of the month, hosting our partners' FBU's National Championships, which is always a superb event. And we showed our flexibility and our partnership with the Parks and Recs department as well by what ostensibly is our largest event. During the same week, we also hosted a perfect game baseball event at North Collier as well. We went from football to lacrosse to small-sided soccer all within 2 weeks, rotating the facility. That comes at a high cost, and we wouldn't have done that had we not seen the revenue return from that. And December was our record month in terms of revenue that was created. Total revenue. You'll hear me say record month most times. It's because we're beating the record January, we're beating the record February, we're beating the record March, and we're going to beat the record April. Into the new year, and one of the challenges that we face in January is this is such a nice area and so popular with tourists that hotels are hard to come by, and the hotel rates are relatively high, specifically for sporting groups, which tend to have tend to trend with a lower average rate for events. So we had a month of showcase events, which are very popular because, and they're good for us and the area because rather than full teams coming, it's individual athletes with a parent. So it's not so much of a drive on the hotel inventory that's available. We're not bringing thousands and thousands of people. But what we are doing with these events is showcasing the flexibility of the complex and our food and beverage team led by Jimbo Mann by feeding every single athlete that comes through and driving revenue through that, which you wouldn't expect. But we're taking advantage of that. Into February, I think I wrote in my newsletter notes, this month really showed our flexibility with Wolfstock being a craft beer and music festival the first weekend, moving into Super Bowl weekend, having a national flag football tournament, into the Western Cup on President's Day weekend, which is again a huge tournament that's hosted by our partners Tournament Success Group. We finished up the middle school soccer season, which we host, supporting the local community and and Mark Rosenbaum and with hosting middle school soccer. And the Southwest Florida Shootout this year featured Ohio State playing Virginia, preceded by Michigan playing Marquette. We sold over 4,000 tickets to this event, engaging traveling people coming in and the local community for such an event, which was broadcast on national TV. Incredibly successful event that required a heavy lift from our standpoint, And we were able to turn that around the next day, hosting an event, which isn't up here, supporting the Collier County Museums and their Jazz on the Lawn, which was an event that brought around about 400 to 500 people to the complex that Sunday and utilised some of the infrastructure that we had in place from the previous day. So we were able to make them savings on that. Also in February was the Zubilee, which was at the zoo. You may have gone to Zubilee. It's the zoo's main fundraiser for the year. We took off food truck and was one of 40 food vendors that was there, and it was the sports complex that beat out all the restaurants to win the judge's favourite for the food that was presented at that event. So that's something that very proud of in another way, and it goes to show that when you mess with a sports complex, you have to expect to come up against people who are very competitive. So we went out there to win, and we won it. So into March. We began with an adult soccer tournament, and then we went into 3 weeks of spring break training lacrosse with the support of Paul. And we were able to go from 1 week last year with the same group to 3 weeks this year. Last year we only fed them lunch. This year we fed them lunch and dinner. That was over 6,000 meals over 3 weeks. This event brings in an incredible amount of economic impact to the local area through transportation, through hotels, not only through the sports park. It's 8 to 9 private and public high schools that come to North Collier and the Paradise Coast Sports Complex. 8 teams a week for 3 weeks running. It's a heavy lift for us on a food and beverage standpoint, but actually on an operational standpoint, it gives us time to take a breath because we're not rotating the fields each week from sport to sport. It's the same sport each week. That being said, in between those weekends, we were filling the event with in-transit soccer events, in-transit sports events. So we're finding that there's a great opportunity for teams from Tampa playing teams from Miami that don't want to drive all the way to Miami or all the way to Tampa, that they meet halfway and they play here, which works for us, and we'll accept that all day. One thing that was an important event for me because I am a cyclist as well, so I'm looking forward to coming to that event. We hosted the Pan Florida Bicycle Challenge, which was a 125, 120, 62, 30, 10-mile bicycle challenge that began and ended at the sports complex. So that was a fun event to have and showcase the different types of events that the sports complex can have. Not only sports on our rectangle fields, events in the Great Lawn, music events, but we can actually do events like running races and bicycle races as well. So as we go through, I mentioned most of these. These are the other events that we've been doing. And our ongoing events is what we do on a weekly basis for the community. I see Sir Matthew's house is here. We do a food distribution every Monday morning. We host a different theme night each night of the week. And one of the things that we've been doing recently is Movies in Paradise, which we were able to secure a sponsor for from a local company, Pelican Wire. So we're able to provide blockbuster movies on the video board every third Thursday of the month for the community at no cost. And those have been very popular. Unfortunately, last Thursday's was cancelled due to the weather that is pretty standard in Southwest Florida, so we're looking to reschedule that one. The next one that is scheduled is the third Thursday in March, and look forward to seeing you there. So there's events going on every single night of the week for the community that we're putting on. What does that mean in a fiscal standpoint? This is through 5 months. I do have notes for where we were halfway through. Essentially, we're looking at a $975,000 in revenue off a $1.3 million budget for the entire year. Which means that we were at that point $395,000. Spoiler alert, now that we have the numbers for March as well, which takes us through 6 months, we're at $1.2 million of revenue and $540,000 over target. Our operating budget had us at a loss of $50,000, and we're operating at a profit of $32,000. So we've had that swing in that net operating income. Again, spoiler alert, as we look into March, 6 months through the year, that number has improved to checks notes. $85,000 in operating net profit, which is $109,000 over where we had projected to be in our budget. This is all based upon the complex being operated as a 5-field complex. We budgeted as a 10-field complex. I lead a very committed and talented team who's very committed and competitive, as I mentioned before. We didn't see the fact that we had budgeted for 10 but only had 5 fields as a challenge. We saw it as an opportunity, and we went after every single revenue opportunity there was, and these are the results that have come from that. We're going to see out the rest of the year. We've mentioned that we're looking to increase our revenue budget for this year, and we're looking forward to inviting bigger and better events as we move into the next fiscal year. One thing that Commissioner McDaniel has requested at the TDC meetings is that we review all of our events, which we absolutely do. And what that means is the events as we move into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th year of our management here is every year we're able to tighten up the events, tighten up the contracts that we have to make them more favourable for us, and make sure that everybody who participates wins, the event operators, the county, and Collier County businesses as a whole. So at this point, that concludes my part of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very proud to present these numbers to you. We've worked extremely hard for them. We continue to commit to doing that. As you can see, the best is still yet to come from the complex. Do you have any questions?
Gentlemen, questions? I have a few, but I'll defer to you first. Anybody?
Until I want to do I have nothing. I'm very pleased with all of this. I appreciate you taking the time to come and tell the board, tell the community what's going on. I'm astounded, as Commissioner LaCastro says on a regular basis, how many people don't even know this facility exists. And so the more we can do, the more we can advertise, the more the merrier. So I want to thank you for coming today. I've got a couple of questions on the next item, but for now we're good.
Thank you. Got a couple questions, and we had said a couple times before, and I appreciate you coming. These regular updates are not only important for us, but for the community, to hear. And then some of us will pull some things off of your presentation and use it in town hall meetings and newsletters and things like that. So it's important that we, separate rumor from fact. When you showed your financials, I assume that's actually cash in hand. Sometimes when you get a financial briefing, they say, well, we brought in 3,000 people, and that was, X number of hotel nights, and those are valued at $110 per night. That's not what you were doing here. This is actual charges, revenue that came in. It's cash, right? It's not cash value, using sort of some other extemporaneous type of numbers as far as like the value to the county or how many people bought tanks of gas, and that's all worked into the financials, which sometimes when you get a financial presentation, somebody does that, but I don't think you were. I just wanted to clarify that, right? That was more of just straight black and white cash flow, correct?
I appreciate the question because it gives me the opportunity to highlight my finance manager, Amanda Vass, who the contracts that we write with our event operators are very tight, and they protect the county in terms of the revenue that we bring in. Our aging report is very, very small. This is booked, collected cash that's in there.
Excellent. I know that you've opened up conversations with, and so is our tourism, development folks, Paul and his team, to do all we can to advertise to people that, we didn't just cut a ribbon on this thing 2 months ago. I'm still flabbergasted that, I just had a town hall meeting at Hacienda Lakes, which is a long walk to the Paradise Coast Sports Complex, and I opened my town hall meeting. Trinity was there, and I said, how many people have ever heard of the Paradise Coast Sports Complex? And yeah, a few hands went up. Every hand should have gone up, and it was a handful. But, I know that we're getting there. The question I have is, have you opened up any conversations yet with Great Wolf Lodge as far as what your relationship's going to be with them? Has that started at all? I mean, I know it's early, but the sooner the better to make sure there's no confusion as to, how we're going to share each other's backyards, and, that our sports complex isn't just an open gate for them to have, free access and free fields for their guests, and it's an awesome deal for them, but not much for us. Has any of those conversations happened yet?
Yeah, it's not early,
Okay.
and we have been in conversation with them for months. So the way that we are presenting our relationship with Great Wolf Lodge so far has been incredibly positive. Similar with the U-line construction that's next door, we look at each other as neighbours, and we want to be good neighbours. So with Great Wolf Lodge, we have begun discussions about where our large events are in the calendar, and connecting their business objectives with our business objectives to try and find synergies there. In addition to that, we receive a lot of their mail, so I'm dropping that off quite often. And recently, we connected them with our vendor Pepsi to help their construction at the early point of their construction now for their bars and restaurants. So we made that referral there as well. So so far, very positive, and we're looking forward to a great relationship with them.
Yeah, we want obviously a symbiotic relationship, but we don't want any ambiguity as far as, you're getting overrun by their guests and people are sort of, storming the compound. And but that's exactly what I hope to hear. A little seed I wanted to plant, but maybe it's a common knowledge to you. So I was at the pickleball tournament that we had at the East Naples Community Park that we had for this past week, the U.S. Open. And one of the gentlemen who's one of the senior leaders, we were sitting side by side, and he goes, hey, Commissioner, I want to show you something. He pulls up his iPad, and he goes, here's what we're doing at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. At their stadium, we have these modular, transportable pickleball courts that we actually lay on the football field, and we can have tournaments. And he said, we obviously will always have the U.S. Open tournament at the East Naples Community Park because it was built for that. He's like, but, we'd love to be able to bring maybe smaller tournaments and put them move them to another location at the county to sort of draw pickleball to different locations. And, that the sports complex would be great with the fields, and whatever they put on top of the grass, it does protect the field. He's like, oh, trust me, Arrowhead Stadium, they're sticklers for us not messing up the field, but they set up 25, I think, of these courts. Have they been in contact with the pickleball folks, either the folks that do the U.S. Open or other pickleball people, to maybe, bring something and do something like that on top of some of our grass fields, if it worked? Is that new news, or it's something you've heard some chatter about that?
It goes back to any opportunity that presents itself to us. We're going to run that down. And pickleball is one thing that we hear about a lot. There is quite an extensive cost to put down those fields for a short period of time. And it would have to make sense for us to be able to do that. But we'll absolutely take a look at that. It has to be played on like a sport court that has to be laid down.
Right.
That comes at a high cost. And if we were to compare that to an event that came in that didn't require it, that would obviously have an impact on the ability for us to drive revenue and be profitable that weekend. But we would absolutely take a look at it.
I mean, it might be something that before they bug out of town, and maybe they already have, you reach out to them, because you and I are in total sync. First thing I said to them is, what does it cost to put all those down? And we wouldn't, absorb the cost of that, or maybe there's some shared thing, but we're not going to make it an unbelievable great deal for them. And for us, it's just gigantic cash cow and, sucking expense or whatnot. And obviously those things would need to be worked out. I just like the concept. And it sounded like at Arrowhead Stadium, they're picking up a lot of the costs because it brings in so many people, and then it balances out what the cost is. So I just wanted to throw it out there. And then lastly, I would just say the next time you give us a brief, a couple of extra slides I'd like to see is what's scheduled in future months, like go out 3 or 4 months. And obviously that's liquid, it's going to change. But as of today, what do you have on the calendar for May, June, July, and August? Just as a little teaser to see, how much it's filling up, or just so that we see, oh, wow, there's something really huge in July already locked in. And I know it gets populated over time, but I would assume you have some things on the books for the summer, and that would be a nice way to end this presentation to show us what you've been working already. Is there anything just verbally you can tell us that's sort of bigger than the normal event that might be coming this summer, or is in the final stages of negotiation?
Yeah, I mean, we missed that. That's something we can absolutely improve on for the next presentation, because we do have a calendar that we can shout about. There's no doubt that the season months for Southwest Florida are going to be our biggest months. That doesn't mean that we don't have a robust calendar as we go through the summer. We absolutely do. The highlight being the FBU's Top Gun event, which is in early July this year. That being said, we're busy every weekend, and one of the things that we're going to talk about is the cost it takes to run the facility versus the amount of revenue that we're bringing in, which is good because we're making more than we're spending. As we move into the summer months, it becomes more of a routine sports complex for us. It's local programming, tournament, local programming, tournament. There's no huge event which requires us to buy 500 cases of soda and water for it. There's no event where we're feeding 6,000 athletes in 3 weeks. So it helps balance out our books in terms of how much we're spending to make the money, but we absolutely have a robust calendar this summer.
And then I'll just add on top of this as the last point, anything that you perceive as a future projected significant maintenance costs, like, hey, we've had all these people, we've increased the pedestrians and the visitors by 10,000% or whatnot, but hey, our bathrooms are starting to take a hit. Oh, we've got the hey, we just figured out the HVAC that we have for all of the suites, it's undersized and it's breaking down I'm just saying hypothetical things, but I'd like us as a board or the county staff to hear any of those things sooner than later, because anything that is more than just sort of normal maintenance, you all are out there, and the more people you bring out there, the more events, stuff starts to wear down, or it takes its toll. So just so we can stay on top of that, so that that field continues to look as as high quality and as impeccable as we want it to be. So I just sort of add that. But other than that, appreciate it.
There is one major thing. I will add that Marissa's team, led by Kirk Peters, does an incredible job of the maintenance of the facility. It still looks brand new, and one of the things that we do have is a state-of-the-art facility that lacks internet connectivity across the facility. So for us to continue to be in competition with other sports venues around the country, adding the ability for us to have internet at each field so that events can be streamed is something that's going to keep us at the forefront, and it's going to keep us from falling down the pecking order of every year a new complex in a nice place is opening. So we need to keep ourselves relevant, and we need to keep ourselves at the top of that tree.
You have an idea, just spitballing, not estimating or giving us a figure, but like what would that cost to add either a system or make us the system we have more robust, or we don't have it and we need it? What's the ballpark investment? Have you done any exploratory work on that so we got an idea of the figure?
Yeah, there's some quotes that have been put together. We're looking at somewhere between 75 to 125,000 to have that done. That varies because we have additional fields to add as well. So.
Okay. One of the things I'll just mention is, as we start to get into rainy season, keep an eye on flooding. I mean, we've built some really nice things around in the community. Other people have as well. And sometimes when you think you've got every grate, every drain, and all that, and then you get one of our huge storms here. Not to mention hurricanes that are coming. But if you start to see some areas where water's really backing up, those are things we want to jump on quickly. And we have that challenge all over the county in places that were designed perfectly, but maybe underserved or just missed something. The slope wasn't quite right, and we've got pooling water and things like that, because that's also a big safety hazard. But that's what I was thinking of. But appreciate the topic about the connectivity. That's obviously, that has merit for sure. Anything? Anybody? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have our follow-on item before we go to our 10 o'clock time certain. That is item 16F3, which is following this presentation directly. This was moved to 11F. This is a recommendation to approve a Fifth Amendment to the Facilities Management Agreement 21-7898 with Sports Facilities Management LLC to amend the budget to reflect the increased cost of goods from $488,928 to $889,365, increased revenues from $1,389,743 to $1,922,474, authorize the chairman to sign the amendment and authorize all necessary budget amendments. Mr. Paul Behrens, your tourism director, will begin the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. And for the record, Paul Behrens, Division Director of Tourism. Just want to echo what Adrian has said. It has certainly been a pleasure, and I'll also mention for those that aren't aware that as of January 1st, the sports complex folded under the oversight of CVB and tourism. And I can tell you that in itself, that oversight, that synergy, that alignment has really allowed some very fruitful conversation on a regular basis. One, as you had mentioned with Great Wolf Lodge, we have had tremendous amount of meetings with their senior executives, their PR, really looking at strategy and timing and how we can connect. So a lot of excitement there. And as far as getting word out for the facility itself, excuse me, we have already initiated Paradise Advertising, which is our branding advertising for the CVB, to immediately look at elevating some of the community communications, whether it's social media, paid media, in market, not only for this year, but also a formal campaign for fiscal 24. So a lot of good things have already happened. A lot of great things are going to continue to happen. The reason why we're here today is the numbers that you saw Adrian present, which are the tremendous amount of people that have been out to the complex already causes costs to increase. So we're going to dig deep on some of those numbers, and I want to introduce to you Marissa Baker, who has really been an ongoing day-to-day alignment with Adrian and his entire team. But when you think about the sports complex, you can think of our combined effort as well as the oversight of the TDC as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Marissa Baker, Manager of Paradise Coast Sports Complex with Collier County. I'd like to take a moment, give you guys some quick facts and history on the sports complex before I hand it over back to Sports Facilities to talk about the financial impacts of the amendment. So as you know, the sports complex has been incredibly successful in attracting more events than anticipated. More events equate to more sales, and the increase in those sales have a direct impact on the cost to acquire goods. Specifically, Sports Facilities created its most recent budget in good faith that the additional 4 fields would be completed by December of 2022. Now they won't be completed before May of 2023, and so they've revised their budget to show accurate increased cost of goods and revenues. So the objective today is to obtain an approval to the Fifth Amendment to the Facilities Management Agreement to amend the budget to reflect those increased costs of goods and revenues. So a little bit of background for you. Collier County entered into the Facilities Management Agreement with Sports Facilities on November 12th of 2021. There have since been 4 prior amendments, and the parties wish to amend the agreement a 5th time to reflect those increased costs of goods and revenues. Currently, costs of goods are pre-funded to sports facilities on a quarterly basis, and what that means is they don't necessarily have access to cash flow outside of the COGS that we pre-fund them. So all of the revenue that Sports Facilities is bringing in is being deposited directly into a Collier County account. So if they require additional monies, that means they have to request that through the county with either county manager approval or approval through the Board of County Commissioners, depending on the amount. With that, I'd like to invite Sports Facilities up to talk about the financial impacts.
Thank you very much, Jack Adams from Sports Facilities Management. Nice to see you all again. The budget for this year was, as you can see on that top line, $1,389,000. And we believe, based on what we have booked, that we will be at $1,922,000. So that's going to be an increase on revenue. And the cost to sell that revenue, this is direct cost of delivery. So if you sell a hamburger, you have to buy the hamburger meat, the bun, the plate, the ketchup. The direct cost of delivery will increase to $889,000. That's a $400,000 cost of goods increase. That's what we're asking for. The net impact to your budget, which is the Collier County taxpayer, their spending, is that instead of spending $170,000, as you can see there, it's now going to be the $37,000 number. So we're saying that although we're asking for more COGS to deliver that revenue, there will be an additional improvement of $132,000 to your bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, as I do the math, so the difference in revenue is $532,731, and then the request that's being asked here for cost of goods is a $410,437, right? I mean, that's the point you're trying to make, right?
Yes.
You're asking for less than what it's going to gain, right? I mean,
That's right.
Just trying to do fifth grade math here, and
We separate our budget into three categories. Revenues are on top. Direct cost of delivery, we call COGS, cost of goods sold, is in the middle. And then you have those fixed expenses that are going to be the air conditioning admin building, the general manager's salary, some of the expenses that don't change depending on how many fields you have or events you bring. And so these are the direct cost of delivery that when you make more, you have to
yep.
spend
Well,
money.
burger and bun thing you just said. Anybody
Burger
got
and the
any
bun.
questions? Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
My first question is, how are you getting along with our clerk of courts?
Very well.
Very well. Audit going okay, questions, answers, payments timely?
Yes, Commissioner, we have a couple clerks that we work with in Florida. We understand Florida law and how to work with clerks. They are very particular and very strong guardians of the taxpayer. They care a lot about that, and they're elected to do exactly what they do. It's our job to feed them what they need to reimburse us.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. The second question I have, and this is a question of operational aspects in relationship to revenues. Commissioner LaCastro basically already said the increase in budgeted income or revenue is almost consumed shy of 100,000, which is attributable to very close to the improvements of the cost of goods sold increase that you have coming up. You got to bring it in 500 and your expenses have gone up 4. What surprised me was somebody owns our own food truck, to a point where we even are entering that food truck in competitions in other areas. And my question is, has an analysis been done to determine the relationship? Because there's a lot of management that goes along. You've got food spoilage, you've got storage, you've got stuff that's going on, you got to buy for, you got to plan for. Whereas if we didn't have our own food truck, we'd pick up the phone and call 5 to come and service 6,000 people that are showing up for the weekend, and we wouldn't have the management and the overhead and the expenses that are attributable to that. Now, I also understand that has an impact on our revenue at the same time. Who's supposed to shut their phone off?
Keep going.
Okay. So, hey, there's a circumstance here of looking good with generating more revenue, but we've also got management and overhead and expenses that travel along with owning our own food truck. And has an analysis been done with regard to the dispensing of that food truck from an operational ownership standpoint and going into a contractual relationship for a fee from independent vendors, supplying more business to the independent vendors in our community?
Short answer, yes. Long answer.
Long answer. There
Hi.
we go.
So it's something that is important. There's likely to be some, I'm not fully aware, so I can't be certain about this, but in terms of us having a beer and wine bar, we have to be able to make sure that we are offering food at all times, which is one thing that we can do. We do go into partnerships with local food trucks, because when we do have these large events, we don't have the ability to service the amount of people that are coming through. Literally too many people are coming. We have Snowfest. We can't handle Snowfest, 6,500 people out of one food truck. So we have to engage And we do have good partners in the food truck community to help us through that. In terms of the analysis of the food truck, it has been a drain on us. There's no getting away from that because it hasn't been as efficient as we'd like it to be. However, we have got to a point where the fixes that have been made to that truck have. What I would suggest is the cost of running the food truck and the ability for us to take it out to community events helps us not only from a revenue standpoint, but it gives us another reason to get out into the community and market the facility to let people who may or may not know it exists, that we do exist. So there's two benefits to the food truck, not just the revenue, but there is the marketing aspect as well.
I'd like to see the analysis that's been done with regard to that, because simply because of there's an enormous amount that comes into your increased request. I'm assuming we're going to approve this amendment, but I think we need to dig deeper, and I'm looking over at the numbers guy when I say that. Dig deeper into an analysis exactly of what the cost of goods sold increases are, what they're attributable for, what's the additional charges that are being paid for out of my Parks and Rec system that aren't included in the actual operating budget that's over here. I'd like to see a deeper dive at our next quarterly report, minimally, maybe at the next TDC meeting along those lines. I mean, it's nice. It's good that we're doing good. I like seeing the extra people coming and so on and so forth. But if we're operating something that we're not, and I don't want to say that we're not good at it, but if we're operating something that we don't need to, and then we could pick up a phone and move it into a revenue generator solely without any exposure, without storage, without spoilage, without anything, and just move it into a revenue generating standpoint, your overall cost of goods sold are going to go down at the same time.
That's heard, and we'll put that together.
Okay.
I would suggest that the food trucks need to make money themselves as well, and their profit margins are pretty tight as well. So, from our perspective of being guardians of the county money, if we felt that the food truck was not a positive thing for us, then we probably wouldn't open it as much as we do. Ultimately, if we are going to do $1,000 of revenue from a food truck, and we get to spend money against that, that's still going to be a much higher amount that we're going to get from not associating the COGS of that and only taking a commission payment from an outside food.
And I don't want, and again, I'm not debating this with you today especially. I just want some credence given, because there's more to an overhead budget or an overhead number than the COGS. There's a whole bunch more that goes into it that adds up to that actually has an impact on your bottom line. And I just want to ensure that exploration is in fact done, so we're going forward. I haven't even got over into the rationale of the government competing with the private sector on a government facility with regard to the disposition and sale of foods. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Let's not do that today. Thank you. That's heard. Thank you.
Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. That's kind of the lines I was going, because, you know, Commissioner Colwell, I'm a simple man. If I had a food truck myself and I was out there to try to make a profit, you know, and I have to compete with inflation and things like that, I would roll that into my product to sell my product to make the money back to what I have to invest in getting my buns and burgers. But see, sometimes we forget when we're aligned with a government agency or government, we always think we have this pot of money we can always just pull from, you know? But that's not our money, that's the taxpayers' money. So we have to be very cautious of that. And I wouldn't have that luxury as a private man out there with a food truck. I would only be able to pull on what profits I made already. So in reality, I could say, all right, let's give you $33,000 because year to date, that's about what you made. So, you know, I have to just swallow this pill. I inherited this when I came a commissioner here 6 months ago. So I owe it to this community to make it work. But I also want to make sure everybody uses caution and think about it as if you were a private businessman operating something like this, because Commissioner Daniel brings up a great point. You know, if the food truck isn't making money, we're not going to use the people's money to make it money, if that makes sense. We have to make sure it's online and making money, just like anybody else would have to do it.
We'll do that analysis to give you the specifics. That's what you're asking for, and we'll definitely put that together so you can see what we're doing. The purpose of the food truck, the initial purpose, Adrian, is the first thing he stated, but we have to have food out at had the Cove in order to serve beer and wine. So that was the purpose of activating it, and we inherited that truck as well. But fixing it up and making sure we had it out there because it wasn't profitable, asking one of our food truck partners, in exchange for coming out to a big tournament and making money that day, we need you to bite the bullet and come into the Cove Monday, and we need you to do it on Tuesday, and you need to do it on Wednesday, and maybe lose a little because we need to have a food truck operating. Now we can take that on. I believe that operating the Cove is not as profitable. However, we can go kind of pay for the truck, which is something we see as an obligation to make sure that we're good stewards of the taxpayer money in that way, to make sure that that thing is at least at a break even, if not better. But I don't want to speak to exactly where it lands. I want to do that study for you very specifically so you can have that.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, and on that point, I'm very familiar with how you do what you do. I do it myself. So, and I have seen that it's better because there's 1,000 independent proprietors that are out there that have their own food trucks, that if you make commitments with those vendors to be there in the good times as well as the not so good times, you'll supply the requisite of the food that you need in order to keep your food or your beverage license intact. So just
Absolutely. And there are things that go into, for example, the cost of goods that we've gone over with our county, administrators as well. But just taking food and beverage as an example, food and beverage costs went up about 9%. We are going to double our revenue in food and beverage. So when you look at the doubling of food and beverage revenue and going up about 9% on that, there's still a delta where we've cost more. And some of the reasons we've cost more in food and beverage, as an example, is bringing on contract staff. These aren't regular staff, but these are for these big peaks of activity like 6,000 meals and things where we bring on a contract chef. Or we have extra entertainment at the Cove to try to drive, that for the community and so on. So there's reasons for those things. When you just have 5 fields and you add 5 more fields, you have a rise over run the exact same thing but more, and you can maintain cost percentages or even drive them down because you're doing it efficiently. When you are without those extra fields and you have to be creative to try to find that revenue to plug the hole, you find yourself doing a lot of different types of things. And you see the creativity and you see all the different types of activities, but those are, in some cases, R&D. Some cases you have different type of staff that you bring on or different things that you have the cost.
got it. I'll make a motion for approval of the amendment.
Okay, got a motion to approve the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passage unanimously. Thank you.
Commissioners, this brings us to our 10 o'clock time certain. Item 10A is a recommendation to approve a 6th amendment to the long-term lease and operating agreement for the Golf and Entertainment Complex with CCBSG Naples LLC to extend the financing contingency period to June 30th, 2023. This item is brought to the agenda by Commissioner Saunders.
Mr. Chairman, if I might give just a short introduction.
Yes, sir. Mike is yours.
I understand Randall Cousins is here. He represents Big Shots, the BSG of Naples. And before he begins, I want to make a couple comments. We're all frustrated with how long this project has been going on without the actual construction. And I know my fellow commissioners are concerned as to what's really happening here and what's causing the delay. And we now have in front of us a 6th request for an extension on the financing contingency for 60 days. And what I would suggest to the commission, we're obviously going to hear from Mr. Cousins. There may be some questions, but I think what I would suggest to the commission is that let's just do a 90-day extension with an indication that this is the last extension on the financing contingency. That should be enough time. If 60 days is what's being requested, give them an extra 30 days and let's get this project underway. And so I'm going to make that suggestion to the commission to at least put some finality to the financing contingency. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Cousins has some comments to perhaps explain what's going on and what's causing the delay and why the 60 days is needed.
Sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Randall Cousins. I'm with Big Shots Invited. And I echo Commissioner Saunders' comments. We are frustrated that it's taken as long as it has for us to get under construction. You know, from our perspective, this is a venture that should produce millions of dollars in revenue, and every month that we're delayed puts that revenue further and further away. So we're highly motivated to get this project under construction. We remain tremendously excited about the opportunity to bring Big Shots Golf to Collier County, as well as to open up Golden Gate Golf Course to public play. So, you know, we continue to explore every opportunity, you know, to try and get this project to completion and to get it under construction. And my hope is that, you know, within the next 60 or 90 days, you know, our next meeting with you is to schedule a groundbreaking ceremony. And, you know, we'll have much better things to talk about at that time. We've continued to make tremendous progress on our project. You know, we've been through an SDP process. We have permits that are ready to be issued. We are continuing to work through what exactly our final budgets for this project are going to be. As a large company with many capital projects of this nature going on across the country, we have pretty simple return math that we have to look. We look at a lens through ROI. And so part of that is being able to get to a budget where our operators, our construction team can stand up and say, this is the number, it's not going to move, you know, the scope is fully defined. And we just, quite simply, we just aren't there yet. You know, we do need a little bit of additional time in order to finalize that scope and those efforts. So I'm hopeful that the 60-day ask is the last ask. And as I said, you know, I hope that our next meeting is one to schedule a groundbreaking.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Cousins, if the extension is provided and you are able to complete your planning or whatever it is that is resulting in the request for this extension, when do you think you could actually begin construction? Being realistic at this point, when can we, with some degree of certainty, say to our constituents, we believe that construction is going to begin on this project when?
In late summer is our target. So we're thinking August 1st, and then we have a 40-week build cycle. So then the goal would be to be open to the public, you know, spring of next year.
Okay, now when you say 40 weeks, is that for the Big Shots facility and the golf course?
That's just for the Big Shots facility.
When would construction begin on the golf course?
It would be on a separate timeline, so it would start construction this year, but then there's, you know, obviously a growing season which affects the construction period for the golf course.
So best case, when do you think the golf course could actually be open for play?
I think next fall.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Commissioner McDaniel, I'm looking for just more clarity on the reason for the sixth extension. You know, if you were a company that had never done this before, you know, you're reinventing the wheel, you know, this is going to be a one, and, you know, and I realize every project's a little unique, but one of the reasons why we got excited about Big Shots is, hey, man, they've done this all over the place, and every place it's been a big hit. And so maybe it's not a design issue, because I would expect, not that every project is cookie cutter, but I don't feel like I got clarity on why we keep kicking the can down the road, or why we aren't, you know, like maybe there's some specific reasons, but I would like specificity in what challenges you're running into that keep having you come back to the well here asking for a little more time, because where I get nervous is, boy, when you're on your sixth request, are you guys about to head out of town going, you know what, this isn't a, you know, we're bailing from this deal, and, you know, I'm putting you on the spot saying that I don't expect that's the case, right? Right?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So then the follow-on is, why the extra time? What's going wrong on your side of things, or what challenges that are unexpected are you all running into?
I think that's a very fair question. And so to get very specific with you, you know, early on in this process, we discovered that there were some title issues with the property. You know, we signed the lease. It was fully negotiated. We signed the lease. There were some issues from the way that the title was recorded that we had to work through with the county, which we did. But that took some time. In part of our due diligence, we did find a protected species of bat on the golf course that needed to be addressed, which required a study, which required some remediation, which did take some additional time, which delayed our SDP submittals and then our, you know, ultimate approvals. They did discover arsenic, some contamination in the soil on the golf course, which isn't unusual, especially for this part of the country, given it was used as a golf course herbicide for long periods of time. But it is something that required, you know, some diligence, which further delayed some submittals and some plans. There was some right-of-way back and forth with the county, which was an issue that we've ultimately resolved, but it's one that, again, took quite a bit of time. And then probably the longest issue was we had an issue about the coating of our exposed steel structure with the fire marshal, where we worked collaboratively with the fire marshal to look at what our competitors were doing in the state of Florida to make sure that we were being held to a similar standard. But that affected not only the design component, but then also the submittals for the specific building that required quite a bit of rework from a design perspective. And then as this time has passed, you know, at this point we're 20 months into this project, the underlying costs of our construction project have continued to increase. We've opened a store in Bryan, Texas. We opened a store at Firestone up in Akron, Ohio. So we understand what these projects cost, and the costs have just continued to increase over time. So part of this has also included, you know, going back to the drawing board from a value engineering standpoint to look at, you know, are there opportunities from the facility to deliver the same experience to Collier County guests, but to do it in a more cost-efficient way. And so that has required us to spend some money from a design and construction standpoint to make sure that we're vetting those plans appropriately internally. To date, we've spent about $3 million on materials. That includes, you know, a steel foundry package. That includes rooftop air conditioning units, elevators, glass doors, things that when we intended to be under construction last summer were long lead items. And so, you know, we've spent that money ahead of time. We've warehoused those items in anticipation of being under construction. And we spent about $1.2 million of consultant dollars with architects, with civil engineers, with local consultants to help us address some of these issues I identified for you. So we continue to spend money. We're very enthusiastic about this project. We certainly think there's a path here, but we've run into some issues that have just required more time than we anticipated during diligence.
Commissioner McDaniel and then Commissioner Hall, you're on deck.
I don't have any questions for him. If you have a question for him, then you can go ahead. I'll reserve my comments for.
Okay, Commissioner Hall.
I just have a couple questions and a comment. So the title's taken care of, the right-of-way's taken care of, the arsenic's taken care of, the bats are taken care of, everything so far that is delayed is taken care of. So what is the 60 days specifically needed for?
So we are finalizing our layout for the concept. So there's a discussion internally about, is this a 60-bay or a 48-bay single-story facility, which changes the budget and quite frankly changes our revenues that we think that we can generate from the opportunity as well as the costs. And so we are going through an internal process of basically landing on a finalized concept scope, which will drive the budget, which then drives the conversation with the banks to finalize the financing.
Okay. And my comment, thank you. My comment would be, I have the appetite for 60 days, but I don't have the appetite for any longer. I've done business. I've been under the gun. I've had to get financing. I've had to do these things. And when the trigger's pulled, you get it done. And so 60 days I have the appetite for, but longer than that, not so much.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah. I don't have an appetite. My comments are for my colleagues. I have nothing to say to you unless you cared to address me. I am done with the golf course financing. I'm done with the sixth extension. This transaction has not been fortuitous for our community since we actually acquired the piece of property. There was justification and rationale for that $29 million. To be honest with you, Commissioner Saunders, you sat with me in March in the Veterans Administration. Actually, we were in President Kathleen Pasadomo's conference room. I was about this far away from her, and General Hartzell was in between me and the Senate President, and he expressed for the fourth year in a row concerns about the site constraints on the location of our veterans nursing home. He expressed concerns to the Senate President while we all sat there. And I think it's high time that we prioritize the utilization of this site, set this golf course construction aside. I'm willing to consider the extension of the financing for the Topgolf facility. Certainly want to support our first tee and their utilization because they have believed, and again, this is convoluted because we've leased or agreed to lease the entire site predicated upon the construction of the facilities, and then you sublease to the First Tee folks. But I would suggest that we recapitulate the entire project, prioritize the utilization of this land for what's most important, and that's our veterans nursing home first. Set aside the construction of the golf course indefinitely until such time as that location is picked and blessed by the Veterans Administration, both at the state and federal level. Continue on with the housing project, because that's a project that's a development that's going forward that's meeting with successes. Continue on with a separate arrangement with First Tee for a lease from us to be able to utilize the facilities of Big Shots as well. And then when we're done and those things are completed, and the Veterans Administration has a piece of property that they feel warm and fuzzy about from a location, utilization standpoint, then we decide whether or not we're going to build a golf course at all. There's a lot of alternatives. I can think of several right off the top of my head. We've got a 12-hole golf course that's coming forward, and though there's a lot of people sitting around me talking to me about 12-hole golf courses that don't play golf, I know it's 9 and 18. So I know I got 3 holes to play with from a land use standpoint. I also know that First Tee and the kids that come there could have a 3-hole golf course to be able to lap around, 1 par 3, 1 par 4, and 1 par 5, and then you do your combination to get your 9 holes and do what you need to do and actually have golf. So I think it's past time. I'm not interested in any additional extensions for the construction of the golf course. If we want to amend this agreement to do the Big Shots, because you've already expended money in doing that, and I'd even be happy, I'd be okay with the loan that originally started out as a subordination agreement that then was found couldn't be effectuated, turned into a $7 million loan to help with the funding of this project. I'd be supportive of those things, but I think it's high time that we prioritize the utilization of this land for what it's designated for, and most importantly, for the Veterans Nursing Home, and set aside the golf course. There was a whole bunch.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Saunders.
make a motion that we approve the 6th Amendment for 60 days.
As a final amendment, as a final extension?
Yes, sir. I'm accepting
second.
your
I'll second
concern.
I'll just add this.
And I'm asking at least 3 members of this board
Yep.
to support this. I heard Commissioner McDaniel. Everything he said is just baloney. And I hate to say that, but that's how I feel about it. I'd like to have the 60-day extension, and we could talk about the Veterans Nursing Home, we can talk about all those things, but that's not what's on the agenda today. What's on the agenda today is moving forward with this project and giving them 60 days.
Before I defer to Commissioner McDaniel, so I'll maybe diffuse but this is healthy. This is healthy. I'm probably the worst person to talk to because this feels very rock crushing lot-ish. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. We are, which is need more time, can't do it, got a problem, this and that. On the flip side, as a realist, I look at it, and I use that rock crushing lot as an example. Sometimes the train's already left the station and it's down the road. And so I don't like to be nickeled and dimed. Everything that Commissioner McDaniel says, I don't know if I'd characterize it the same way. I think a lot of it does have merit, but I sit here and say, okay, I mean, the cooks are in the kitchen. They're trying to cook the meal. I mean, this isn't the time to close the restaurant and just say, let's be done with it. But you're sitting here on the 6th extension, and like I said, my biggest disappointment is this isn't a fly-by-night operation. I get the arsenic, I get the bats, I get that there were some other things, but some of that, a good contractor sort of works that padding into the. Doesn't mean you don't ask for extensions, but 6 is, that to me that's a lot. Having said that, I look at it as, okay, if, I defer to the commissioner that's been working this project even a lot longer than I have. 60 days isn't 6 years, but it's like, hey, it's 60 or nothing. And if it does get approved here, you need to take that back to your leadership and say, hey, you were given a gift here, because you do have one commissioner that made some points that I actually think do have merit. And some of it is more of a frustration of, gosh, we're not launching the space shuttle here. What takes so long? The one part I will add about the Veterans Nursing Home, but I do agree with Commissioner Saunders, that's not the argument here. But as an aside, I had a one-on-one with General Hartzell, who I know from sort of a previous life, and one of the things he said to me, and the Veterans Nursing Home is important to all of us, everybody here, he did sort of say, and maybe it's not your issue, but it's ours, hey, I hope the Veterans Nursing Home is your priority on that piece of property. And the answer is, obviously it is. All of the things are a priority, but he did express some concern, and you're exactly right in front of Senator Pasadomo, and then to me separately in a meeting where he asked me to swing by his office, and he said, don't let that nursing home get choked out by some of the other things. We've worked really hard and have moved you up the list for some very specific things, one of the lines I said to the news media yesterday is, when it comes to that nursing home, we don't want it to be the next one, we want it to be the best one. And part of that is making sure they have the space that we need. Having said that, I do agree with Commissioner Saunders, that's not the argument here, but it is a little bit of the backstory. So I don't love it, but I support 60, not 90. But I can tell you, leave here knowing that on the 61st day, all of a sudden my allegiance is going to switch over to every single thing Commissioner McDaniel said, because I actually think some of it still has merit now. But I also just I feel like if we're that close, and if you're sitting here saying that, okay, the bats are gone, the arsenic is gone, okay, you guys are supposed to be really good at this. The other thing I will say is, you listed some things, well, it took us some time to work with the county. I'm not here to be throwing spears or anyone out of the bus, but we are the county. So if it took an excessive amount of time, I want you screaming from the rafters saying, we can't get a hold of somebody on the staff, or your county manager is blowing us off, or nobody cares. And I'm just saying that hypothetically. If that's the case, we have the ability to accelerate, bring everybody in a room. So if there's an artificial slowdown, and I know you didn't say that, but I just say that to sort of plant the seed. Remember, we are the county, so I don't want to hear all these extensions are needed because it's taken a while for the county. And I know you didn't say that, and maybe that's not true. I hope it's not true. I hope it's, hey, we've been working with the county and they've been great, but we've needed more time for unexpected challenges that we didn't plan for. Okay, that has merit, but to me, this would also be it. Got everybody lit up here. Commissioner McDaniel, you're next. Did you want to go next, or you want me to defer to? I got Commissioner Colwell. I got Commissioner Saunders. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, sir. You're next. And
Right.
Commissioner Colwell, you're on deck.
I take exception to Mr. Commissioner Saunders' statement. What I said was absolute fact and absolutely not baloney. You're certainly entitled to your opinion, but I think it's past time for us to prioritize the utilization of this site for what's important for the community and the veterans of our community, and prioritize the Veterans Nursing Home first. And for you to call what I said, all of what I said, is baloney, I
Yes,
take
sir,
insult.
I stand by that.
Yeah, well, you just
Retract that.
continue to do
You
so.
voted against the funding source for the Veterans Nursing Home. Now you support it. I think that's hypocritical, quite frankly.
Absolutely not factual either.
You voted against placing on the ballot the sales tax. That is the
Absolutely.
funding source.
That's an entirely separate adventure as to
That's
what
the
we're
funding
talking
source.
about for here.
That's the funding source for the Veterans Nursing Home.
Right. And 460 other $1 million worth of things that weren't attended to properly. So the singular funding source for the Veterans Nursing Home came out of the sales tax. And it was genius, by the way, that you put it in that mix to make that look that much better. But it has nothing to do with the circumstances to what we have right now. And the fact that you and I have sat there for 4 years, and General Hartzell has been consistent with his concerns with regard to the proposition and the utilization of this site is factual.
Then you need to add to an agenda item where we can have this discussion. The item today is whether or not we're going to extend this for 60 days.
Right.
The item today isn't, are we going to cancel a golf course? Are we going to move the Veterans Nursing Home to a bigger spot on that? That's not on the agenda. If you have that, put some substance together and present it. But to bring this up at the last minute with no notice is not really the right way to do the county's business. We have a motion and a second to give them an additional 60 days. That's what's on the agenda. If you want to cancel the golf course and do all those things, bring it forward, but not on an item that's not related to that, without any substance.
We go to Commissioner Colwell. Sir?
Thank you, Chairman. I just Commissioner Hall had asked that question, and we kind of got through all the hurdles, and you got to the point where he asked you, okay, then what is the additional issue or additional delay? And something just stuck out, and when I heard you give the answer, you said that you and your people are still debating if it's worth doing a 60 or a 40 or, position building. And so if you're still in that position now, debating if it's going to be profitable and how many spots you're going to build for the driving portion of it, everybody hits the balls, or the positioning, or areas where you utilize while you're there using your facility, and you're talking 60-day extension, and you're telling me that you will have that figured out, you'll have those plans done, and all that in a 60-day period, so you can move forward.
Yes, sir. I mean, we are not starting today. This has been something that's been in progress.
But you just said what would be next. He asked you what's next now. Where are we at? And you said you're still debating what would be the profitable number of.
What I understood the question to be was, what was the last outstanding issue? And the last outstanding issue is we have plans designed.
So it's still outstanding.
It is still outstanding.
Okay, you have 60 days to figure it out.
Yes, sir. We have 60 days to finalize it.
Okay,
It's been in
that's it.
progress for much longer than we didn't start today. We've been working on this for quite a while.
I'm just telling you my position. You got 60 days.
Understood.
Understood.
Let me ask you a question. If you didn't get the 60 days today, if we all voted it down, what happens? You guys pack up and leave?
Yes, sir, we would be required to terminate the lease.
One thing that Commissioner Colwell says that does resonate with me is, okay, while you're killing bats and cleaning up arsenic, you should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm flabbergasted that you didn't know how many slots to have and you haven't done the financials. I mean, you do all those things simultaneously, and because you're a valid company that has done this all over the country. And I'm looking for a rebuttal to this. I'm not being accusatory, but I'm just throwing it out there and saying, wow, while they were doing all the unexpected things, they weren't sitting around the conference room table and saying, well, at least we have the plan. At least we know how big it's going to be. So we've got all those sort of things done. Now let's deal with bats and arsenic and all these unexpected things, and maybe a county moving a little bit slow. But all the things we can control is all sitting in a binder ready to go. And so what's incorrect about that statement I just said?
Yeah, I think maybe I've done a poor job of explaining our contemporaneous efforts over the last period of time. So when we opened the Big Shot store in Bryan, Texas, we opened it in January of last year. It was a 60-bay, 2-story facility. That is the plan and the building that we had basically finalized and intended to move forward with here. So as we went through that SDB process, we went through the permitting process, that was basically the foundation of the application that was made for the store here. In November of last year, we opened a store at Firestone in Akron, Ohio, which was a 36-bay facility. It was smaller. It was kind of an existing building that had been renovated that had a different driving range on it. And those two had dramatically different cost basis. The construction costs were very different. The revenue opportunities were very different. And what we've seen as we've continued to monitor these two very different prototypes is that there was a bigger opportunity sometimes with a smaller concept in that size market than we had previously anticipated.
In any of your previous, as far as you know, previous projects, have you needed 4, 5, 6, 10, 11 extensions? I mean, I know every project's different and it might not be apples to apples, but is this an anomaly here that you've run into such a unique case in Collier County, but everywhere else it's, it's plug and play and boom, you're off and running, or extensions are sort of what your company is, known for, based on, unknown requirements?
No, our goal is to ask for the amount of time that we need and then to execute inside of that period. So this would be an anomaly.
So why are we so different besides the bats and the arsenic, which aren't, like you said, arsenic's found on lots of golf courses and things like that, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot or grill you, but I just would like clear answers as to what makes us so different. Is it our county staff is moving too slow and everywhere else, they've been at your beck and call? And I'm not saying that to be accusatory of the county, but I'm just trying to find the nuggets that have extended this for such a long period of time. Is it you? Is it us? Is it a combination? And while we were killing bats and cleaning up arsenic, lots of other stuff should have been already completed, done, and like I said, sitting on the shelf ready to go. I feel like I'm still missing something. Am I? is there anything to add or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really downplaying the bats and the arsenic and the tidal work and especially the fire marshal issue. I mean, those things took some substantial time and they required adjustments to our plans.
Okay, all right.
And,
fair.
you know, the intention was to basically build the building that we already had built, that we already had planned. And so
Well,
this
I don't
this
like the
pivot
60
came last.
days, but I know if I say no to it right now, you guys walk away, and then that means all the stuff that has led up to this was basically for nothing. I wasn't a commissioner, but I wouldn't have been a big fan of buying the golf course and all that, but that's ancient history. We got it sitting here right now, and if we're 60 days away from doing something, I think you guys packing up because, you couldn't get 60 days would be a real waste of all the time that we've waited up to this point and all the progress that has been made. But I can tell you, like, Commissioner McDaniel is saying, he's sort of out of time. I think everybody else here has a very short fuse, because we've got that property for some other projects as well that seem to be, on the same piece of land and are moving forward at light speed. Commissioner Saunders, sir.
And again, I appreciate the commission going forward with the 60 days. Let me explain two things. When we first conceived of this project and purchased the golf course and entered into an arrangement with Club Corp for the golf course, we had an engineering firm that went the wrong way. It was our firm that we hired to help us with the permitting on that whole 169-acre parcel. Because of mistakes done by our engineers, that delayed us probably a year to a year and a half. As a matter of fact, Club Corp and Big Shots hired another consultant to take over the consulting work to make sure we could get through the state permitting. So that probably, you add the arsenic to that, you add the bats to that, and our engineering mistakes, that probably added a year and a half to 2 years to this whole process. After that time period, we had the issues with the availability of equipment and all of that, the increase with inflation, all of that has now piled on top of that. So it's understandable that they've needed more time to reconfigure this project because of the delay and the increase in cost. But I agree as well that 60 days, if you can't get it done in the next 60 days, then we need to start thinking of other things. So I appreciate the board's consideration, and I would request that we go ahead and vote on the motion.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second. Am I correct? We already have one. And this
Yes,
would
sir.
take 3 votes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. So I'll say, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It passes 4-1. Let's take a break, and let's come back here at 11 o'clock.
Chair, you have a live mic.
Okay, County Matt, if everyone could take their seats, please, we'd like to start. Okay, what's next?
Commissioners, we're moving on to item 7. This is public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda.
Mr. Chair, we have 12 registered speakers for this item. Your first speaker is Eldon Solomon. I think I've got that right. And he'll be followed by Jackie Kay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present here today. There's my clock. Thank you very much. My name is Eldon Solomon. I'm here to introduce myself as the CEO of the Journey Home. We're a veteran outreach organization. We have expanded our services. We're a national organization trying to find veterans who are homeless or at risk. And we've expanded our operations and programs here with our veteran outreach team to Naples. I also want to create awareness that the journey home of veterans is a struggle. You might be aware that between 17 and 25 veterans commit suicide every day. But did you know that when you add drug overdose and accidental deaths of veterans, the veteran death rate rises to 44 per day? You might not know that 33% of veterans, homeless veterans, experienced war zone deployment, and that the suicide rate amongst despite how hard we have fought to decrease the suicide rate amongst our veterans, that rate continues to remain high. And that in rural populations or populations like Naples, where veterans are isolated from resources, that suicide rate can go up to 4.2%. You know, you've also heard that the federal government will say that there's 37,000 veterans that they count every year, and that's correct. What you might not know is that that count occurs in metropolitan urban communities where the veterans want to be counted. In rural communities and other locations throughout the country, that population is not counted. So the veteran homeless population is really, in reality, impossible to count. They estimate that 1.4 million, 1,400,000 veterans in this country are either who are at risk of becoming homeless, and that less than 50% of all veterans that have access to VA care actually use that care. So our veterans are in trouble, and the Journey Home works with local, regional, and national community partners to go find those veterans, walk with them, and connect them to those services. I provided for you a couple things to think about. The Did You Know stats that I just gave you are programs and services, and we're doing a meet and greet tomorrow at the VFW on Neff Way. I'd love to have you all there to be with us and learn more about veteran homelessness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Jackie Kay. She'll be followed by Bo Landers.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Jackie Kay. I am an Army veteran, and I'm on the board of directors for the Journey Home, as well as I am the chair for our national mission. Our goal is not only to end, or our mission to not only end veteran homelessness, but to build partnership within various communities and regions across the United States. And in building these partnerships, form a network of providing services to veterans so we can attack that suicide rates. Just for example, so we're averaging about 22 veterans dying by suicide each day. That is 154 veterans in a week, 660 veterans in a month, and 7,392 veterans in a year. So as I'm looking at attacking this complex problem, you have to understand that a complex problem requires complex solutions as well as resources. One of the first things that I've thought about when I look at this issue and how, starting at the federal level, we can start addressing it. As much as I love the fact that we do a lot for immigrants who come to the United States and who want to have a new life, we provide services, homes, insurance, we provide everything that they need for that new life. Why aren't we providing those same services and resources to veterans. These are the veterans like myself who have served our country, who have made many sacrifices, but we have immigrants, and this is not about an immigration issue, but we have immigrants coming to our country receiving more services than our veterans. So I feel like that is something that we need to change. Not only that, we need to have a system of, within the military, when veterans get out, they go through transition. So we need to have that same system within our community where they transition into the community. They are provided these same services that go to other people who come to our country. And within this network of organizations, we're also providing a buddy or a sponsor to help that person integrate into the community. So when we look at this issue, if the numbers aren't changing, we're doing something wrong or we're missing something. So we have to think outside the box. Another thing we have to put onto that is black mold poisoning, which leads to a condition called CIRS, chronic inflammatory respiratory syndrome. And as a matter of fact, I heard someone mention Senator Scott. Senator Scott, Senator Rubio, Warren, as well as Ossoff, they contacted the Department of Defense inquiring about the black mold and the contractors that they use. So he would be someone I would definitely like to talk to if we can get connected to him. But we have to think outside the box. And to me, it's just unacceptable that so many veterans are dying each day and they're giving less services than people who are coming to this country who have not invested in our country. Thank you all very much.
Your next speaker is Bo Landers. He'll be followed by Michelle Lavola Brown.
Hello there, my name is Bo Landers. I'm the National Co-Chair for Journey Home, and I'm just excited to be here. I'm not a veteran, but I grew up in rural Kentucky, and my loyalty and respect for those people that give us all the opportunity to be where we are right now here in Naples, Florida, or wherever, is why I love this veteran program and the outreach program and what we're doing, because I had lots of friends and family that grew up in hollers that moved back there that were veterans that didn't want to help or didn't want to accept help from the VA or whatever it is. But here with Journey Home, we're going to the streets. There's so many missed numbers about how many homeless veterans are here. VA says 2, somebody says this, somebody says that. I don't know what the quantifiable number is, but I know that as a realtor, I do an awful lot of rentals. I work with St. Matthew's House, Shelter for Abused Women, and, you know, there's all these numbers. But I see these guys coming to these food lines. I see these guys that need help, that just maybe need a hand or whatever, that aren't being counted. And I think that that's probably one of the most important things to me and my heart, is that we take care of those people that took care of our freedom. It's just that simple for me. And that's why I'm passionate about this. And ever how many homeless people are at risk here in Naples, Florida, this Journey Home program, we're going to make sure that we're going to give them help or access to care. Our first part of our national mission is access to care. We have vans here already that we're going to start in the end of May, taking these veterans to these care, whether it's mental health or prescriptions, whatever they need. That's going to be our first step into helping the community resolve whatever issues there is with veterans that are out there in the woods. Maybe they don't want to be counted or whatever the case may be, but we still got to go try to find them. We still got to make a grassroots program and get out there. One thing I've learned with this, veterans trust other veterans. And with my relationships with VFW and all these other groups, I am reaching out to get help, to go get those guys that need help. And I'm just blessed to be part of the Journey Home and represent them. And I'm grateful for your time and energy and letting us be in front of you. Thank you so much.
Your next speaker is Michelle Lavola Brown. She'll be followed by Craig Manchin.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Lavola Brown with Naples Pathways Coalition. In 2018, we shared the vision for the Paradise Coast Trail, and in January 2019, with assistance from Rails to Trails Conservancy, we coordinated a kickoff meeting with members of their team, broad representation from city and county transportation, our MPO, members of local government, the TDC, Parks and Rec, public transportation, and other community leaders to determine support for a multi-use pathway system. The enthusiasm was overwhelming. Fundraising began, and in April 2019, we hired Kimley Horn to help develop a strategic plan, map the study corridor in coordination with Collier County Transportation and the MPO, and increase community awareness. A BCC resolution was passed later in 2019 in support of the Paradise Coast Trail, and it was adopted into the county's Bike Ped Master Plan. Senator Passidomo sponsored NPC's legislative funding request for a feasibility study that was signed into the state's budget in July 2020. The study was completed, submitted, and accepted last summer. In February, NPC board members and I met with Dan Rodriguez, Ed Finn, and Trinity Scott to discuss next steps for getting the Paradise Coast Trail built. We were advised of the need for a workshop of commissioners and county staff, transportation, Parks and Rec, tourism development, etc., to take a deep dive into the Paradise Coast Trail. An action item from that meeting was the project list I received from Trinity that I forwarded to each of you. It included numerous projects that will ultimately become part of the Paradise Coast Trail, but it still won't be completed by 2045. Our goal today is to schedule a workshop on the Paradise Coast Trail, with the result being a plan to have all 70 miles built and connected within 5 to 10 years. We need to place its construction high on the priority list so we can start reaping all the benefits that we're missing out on. The trail will broaden our tourism offering, spark new business development along the trail, and increase our tax base, especially in the eastern part of the county. More importantly, it will connect to and greatly increase use of the new sports complex and enhance the value of that investment. It will improve safety for walkers and bike riders, enhance quality of life, provide safe, affordable fitness and recreation for people of all ages and abilities, and help move commuter cyclists off of our crowded sidewalks. I sent you each FDOT study on the extensive economic benefits of trails that we're missing out on. That would pay for a lot of other great projects and programs, and the exciting news about the $250 million of Sun Trail funding for the 23-24 fiscal year. NPC is requesting that our county grant writers apply for this funding so we can catch up to the rest of the state's trail networks. I'm happy to assist in any way I can. This trail will be part of our shared legacy if prioritized appropriately. Please schedule a workshop in the very near term, and please encourage our county grant writers to apply for the funding. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Craig Manchin. He'll be followed by Nat Smith.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Craig Manchin. I want to draw your attention to a serious problem facing our community: the safety of pedestrians and cyclists on our roads. Did you know that Florida ranks among the top 3 states in the country for pedestrian and cyclist deaths? It's a shocking statistic and one that should alarm all of us. As an avid cyclist, I've seen the dangers firsthand. I've had friends who were seriously injured while riding, and tragically, I've had 2 friends that were killed. Many of my friends are no longer willing to take the risk of riding on our roads. And who can blame them? With distracted drivers, speeding cars, narrow bike lanes, it's simply not safe. But there is a solution. In my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, we have miles and miles of separated paved trails for pedestrians and cyclists to enjoy. These trails are a safe haven away from the danger of the roads, and we can have the same thing here in Naples. The Gordon River Greenway is a fantastic example of what's possible. This separated trail is 4 miles long and provides a safe space for people to walk, run, and bike without fear. But we need more. We need the Paradise Coast Trail, a 70-mile paved trail that stretches across our community. The Paradise Coast Trail would be a boon for families and outdoor enthusiasts alike. It would provide a safe space for people to enjoy the beauty of our community without the fear of being run over by a distracted driver. It would encourage more people, more families to get outside, exercise, and explore our community. So I hope that we can count on your support in the building of the Paradise Coast Trail. It's an investment in our community's safety and well-being, and one that we can all be proud of. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Your next speaker is Nat Smith. He'll be followed by George Dondonville.
Good morning, Nat Smith, Naples, Florida. Resident, taxpayer. Feel like I'm in a poker game and I didn't know which ace to play. I've got a whole handful of aces. Let's see, taxpayer, veteran, grandfather, father, husband, Naples Pathways Coalition board member, City of Naples Community Services Advisory Board member. You know, I'm feeling really good here, really good. We are asking for your help in getting Collier County's share of the $250 million in funding that the state just approved for multi-use trails. We are underrepresented compared to other counties within the state in terms of the amount of current trails we have. So now I'm putting on my retired businessman hat. How do we get it? Well, boy, we start by asking for it. And we are in a wonderful position given the support we have from State Senator Kathleen Pasadomo. So then I'm thinking, okay, can we use this to enhance the value of the investment that you all have already approved in the Paradise Coast Sports Complex? So that was looking pretty good. Completely agree with Craig on the safety issue. Until I became a resident of Naples, Florida, did not personally know people who had been either in serious accidents or killed as a result of cycling. But so this to me just seems like a wonderful opportunity to use, and this is only the second time I've spoken in front of the commission, to use what we used to call OPM in the business world, other people's money. So the money's out there. It is a wonderful time to take advantage of this. Would appreciate your help. Thank you.
Your next speaker is George Dondonville. He'll be followed by Susan Sonneschein.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is George Dondonville. I reside at 2460 14th Street North, which is, if you don't travel inside the city limits, it's just on the north side of Naples High School. I've lived there for well over 20 years, but I've been a resident of Collier County, but mostly all the time in the city of Naples since 1986, when I came here with a bicycle shop that had moved and opened up business here. They'd moved down from Lee County. I met Mr. Saunders during that period of time, I believe. Anyways, I'm also a founding member of NPC, so I speak from that. I'm back on the board again after having been off the board for a little while. I'm here to reiterate the request to have that workshop. It's high time that we have it for all the benefits that have been already described. And also to request that we apply for our fair share, Collier County's fair share, of that $250 million grant that's out there to help build the Paradise Coast Trail. I don't know what each of your habits are as far as exercise. I know that in the past I've seen Mr. Saunders out riding his bike and participating in bike rides and other athletic events. I know currently that I ride with Commissioner Hall. I did so yesterday, not for very long because I had to go attend a meeting. I'm on the CRA advisory board in the city and I had to go attend that meeting, so I had to leave early. But I've ridden with him before that, during the time that he was running for commission. He used that as a vehicle, we'll say, his rides to advertise throughout the northern part of the county over on the west side that he was running for commission. And hence, I look to him to help lead this effort on behalf of NPC, I would say, and some of the other shareholders, we'll call them, like the Naples Valley, that you, in riding, realize the problems that you have as a rider. The rest of you, if you get out at all on foot in the community would realize very quickly the problems. But even just driving your car around the community. When I came in '86, you could count them on your hands how many people went out on a ride. There was basically one place to go ride. It was up in Pelican Bay. Right. And we would sneak over into Pine Ridge and ride over there. Riding through the city, you wouldn't see anybody hardly. I'd get up early in the morning and go out before breakfast, and I could ride from the bottom of Gordon Drive all the way up to Seagate and back as many times as I want, and if I saw one car or two cars, that was it. Well, we've become bigger, and we need off-road facilities in order to make it safer. So with that said, I've just asked that if you would see that we have that workshop and that we apply for those grants. Thank you very much for your time.
Your next speaker is Susan Sonnenschein. She'll be followed by Tyler Wood.
Good morning. My name is Susan Sonnenschein, German for sunshine, and I am on the board of directors of Naples Pathways. I just wanted to talk about the many reasons that we should support the construction of and funding of the Paradise Coast Trails. But the primary thing I want to highlight is the benefits to tourism and the resulting economic benefits to our community. In the news, nearly every day we hear about challenges on our beaches, erosion, the giant seaweed thing that's coming to us, the hurricanes, red tide. So how about we support an activity that attracts tourists who have interests other than just going to the beach, since the beach could be problematic for us sometime in the future. Bike trails are a huge economic machine in many, many communities across the United States. Bike tourism is even bigger in Europe. I have been traveling around the United States and in Europe on just going on safe bike trails. It's kind of the thing I love to do. And when I do that, I spend a lot of money on these trips in the communities that I visit. On these wonderful trips that I take, 1 in 3 weeks to Europe to bike in the Alps, we rent bikes, we stay in hotels, we eat in restaurants, we visit museums, we buy stuff. In other words, we spend lots of money on these bike trips. The one thing that we do not do is get in a car. Naples needs to have an alternative outdoor experience that attracts tourists. The kinds of tourists cycling attracts are adults and family who have money to spend. In light of our ongoing beach issues, it makes a lot of sense to invest in attracting a different type of tourist, one that will result in many new small businesses aimed at servicing the cycling tourist industry, as seen across the country. You don't have to travel very far to see the success of trails nearby. The Legacy Trail, which starts in Venice, was recently extended to downtown Sarasota. Sarasota was smart, as they recognized the value of bringing bicyclists to downtown. They don't need parking spaces. They like to drink a beer or two. They like to eat meals. They buy gear. It's green and it's green. No pollution and green dollars. Naples and Collier County could reap huge benefits from the Paradise Coast Trails. So let's get some of that grant money that's available. Thank you for your support. It's a smart investment for our community. Thanks.
Your next speaker is Tyler Wood. He'll be followed by Ashley Jenkins.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Wood. I've spoken to some of you, and over the past couple of years, I'm the Director of ESG and Sustainability with Gravitas Infinitum. We're a sustainable impact holding company. We were selected top 50 most innovative companies in the world about a year and a half ago. So I spent a lot of years kind of shaking the tin cup, looking for, cash. And we went through our techno-economic due diligence with a multi-trillion-dollar sovereign advisory group that's US-based. And basically, they've provided us a tremendous opportunity, both for here and around the world, to talk about the trash and waste. Also, we're members of the Solid Waste Association in North America. I'm a member of their technical division for sustainable materials management. There's an RFI that's coming out we'll be participating in, dealing with the waste in the landfill, the recycling, the sludges, the various trash, especially from after the storms and whatnot. And just wanted to share that we're going to be participating. We'd like you to be aware of what we're doing. I've had some conversations with Commissioner Saunders, and looking forward to kind of sharing a little bit more and making you aware of what we're doing, not only here, but around the world. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question? I believe, Mr. Rodriguez, you're going to be in touch with this one, because I just wanted, because I had mentioned that I would make sure that someone from staff did talk to you about whatever that project was, so we could get some information on it. So just a reminder.
Absolutely, Commissioner. In fact, Dr. Yilmaz and Solid Waste, Kerry, the director of Solid Waste, they have the RFI that he mentioned coming out. Great opportunity for this vendor to respond and provide his technology. So we can
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, your next speaker is Ashley Jenkins, and she'll be followed by Shelley McKernan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Ashley Jenkins, 34102, and I'm here to ask why we're reconsidering engaging the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers feasibility study when it was a failure in 2018-2021 to adhere to the environmental compliance. This study used an emergency supplemental bipartisan bill then preceding Irma, Harvey, and Maria to go around being environmentally feasible. Studies could be conducted, then after be tested to be environmentally compliant, which it was not. This is a gigantic waste of resources from taxpayers. How do you propose to take millions of taxpayer dollars to repeat a study that will not meet environmental compliance another time, and with a governmental arm casually insinuating eminent domain? This is the definition of insanity. The county has paralysis analysis in lieu of solutions which are cost-effective and have been emailed to each of you. Now we have more proposed research from engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers is responsible for the pollution from Lake Okeechobee. Their present proposals of flooding eastern Collier via the south-flowing storm ponds from the lake is deeply concerning. The now proposed concrete structures or man-made natural elements pose a threat to water health, property rights, endangered animals, in particularly our sea turtles, which return back to the very spot that they were birthed to mate and nest, tourism, and essentially create barriers to the Gulf of Mexico. Zero person wants congested sea gates. It is clear that should these be closed by any facet of government, like influence from elite terrorists or foreign adversaries who have staged simulations of another scamdemic in the name of climate change. Let's think what the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, and Colorado River hold in common. Water crushes rock. Zero concrete or structures will ever prevent the flow of water if forces behind it, such as a higher event storm, as we have experienced. We now know that Marco Island, Pelican Bay, and Port Royal were left vulnerable in this proposal. Water would still flood, and in this projection, other areas would now be vulnerable. The construction proposed would be a nightmare in our area, and how does this fit with the backlog of previous development already in queue? The last time that the county saw this type of surge was 62 years ago in Hurricane Donna. The city of Naples just spent $5 million to study the permit to pollute in lieu of solving the problem for pennies on the dollar in storm ponds. And staff's recommendation was to do more studies. Likewise, slap a filter on our polluting pipes, treat the water, and dredge displaced sand contributing to tidal rises. Renourish our beaches beyond the berms as Miami and numerous other areas have done. Sand will always move around, and instead staff members are now recommending a feasibility study that is a waste in lieu of solutions. The Army Corps failed to answer direct questions in NEPA scoping. There was zero posting of the public meeting on April 18th. I have searched with tireless evade. Hundreds of questions were talked around and avoided. The public does not want this. Adequate public notice is a joke because less than 0.1% of residents and stakeholders were initially there for the consideration. Building a seawall is a fantasy being instigated in the name of environmental concerns from the same enthusiasts who contributed to the 4 billion plus ineffective mass in our landfills daily. You are a non-federal sponsor, gentlemen. You will be held accountable if this progresses instead of compelled solutions you have for public health and safety. I thank you for your consideration.
Your next speaker is Shelley McKernan. She'll be followed by Garrett Byrant.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Shelley McKernan, 34102. I'm here to speak about the United States Army Corps of Engineers study. What an expensive study that actually doesn't create a better solution that the public wants. More concrete is not the answer in this once failed study. We have manipulated the land that used to be mangroves, polluted the water, and now you are spending our tax dollars to consider putting up concrete and steel blockades to our waterways that will cause more harm to the environment, wildlife, tourism, and real estate. Plus, it looks like one would be capable of locking boats in if a government agency chooses to do so. For less than what you are spending on this once failed study, we could put filters on our existing infrastructure to remove nutrients and other pollutants. Please move forward with the filter from Collier. It can remove nutrients, copper, PFAS, pollutants, and more. I kindly emailed that information about the filter last month, which was misrepresented by staff in a meeting, and heard nothing back from staff or Rick LaCastro. We are not utilizing a hydrogen peroxide real solution from blue-green water technology to address harmful algal blooms because it may cause more harm. But this wall will cause much more harm to the wildlife than trying to balance our waters out. We have a nutrient problem and overgrowth of algae that everyone acknowledges, which over time will continue to decrease oxygen in the water. The Army Corps of Engineers choose to release Lake Okeechobee when it is a known fact every February we have a major red tide bloom. What the shell? You trust them to put this study together and have our best interest at heart? We must have local representation and natural solutions for this project. Why was the Coastal Advisory Committee removed from all of the study? Why is the term eminent domain being thrown around? My question was not answered or addressed at the virtual call, along with many other questions that were skipped over. I'm hoping I'll have more luck tomorrow evening. I do not want what the United States Army Corps of Engineers have proposed thus far. Please, I beg you to address water quality. Ashley and I have brought forth solutions for months. Please have staff reach out to these companies to get the real answers that would apply to our environment so we have a safer county for humans and nature alike. We will be sending additional emails and follow-up this week. Thank you so much for your time. We want and need to stop doing harm to our water. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Miller, before we go to the next person, I mean, and this might be a little bit out of sequence, but I just feel the need to make a comment to separate rumor from fact for you two ladies and anybody that's listening. And I'll address specific statements that you said without getting into a big debate here. We're not restarting a failed study. We're letting them finish one. We haven't considered or agreed to anything by the Army Corps, and they haven't made any proposals yet that we have voted on. So nothing's been proposed. The walls are merely conceptual or cartoon drawings, as I've called them in my replies to citizens, not a plan, not blueprints, and nothing that we voted on. The April 18th meeting that was posted, I was on it, and so were 600 other people, so they must have found out about it somewhere. But that virtual call is the first of many public comments. The next one's actually going to be in person at the East Naples Library, so I encourage you to be there, and public comment will continue. We don't expect to get the final report to possibly 2025, so no walls, moats, Game of Thrones castles, or any of those cartoon drawings that you have seen have been anything that we have considered, voted on, talked about, or anything like that. And their final report will have all kinds of things in it. And I will tell you, I think a big part of their report is going to be natural type of thing. So if you've ever worked with the Army Corps before, and I've said it in this room till I'm blue in the face, they're going to give us a proposal that's huge, and it's going to stem from everything of here's where you should add a little more sand and maybe some more mangroves to, if money was no object, you could build castles, moats, and gigantic swinging doors and maybe a couple of Panama canals that would protect all of Collier County. And those are obviously things that aren't realistic, aren't affordable, but what the Army Corps does is they give you a plethora of analysis and study. But we've voted on nothing, we've decided on nothing, and nothing has been presented to us. So the cartoon drawings that I've seen on Facebook aren't a proposal to county commissioners, and certainly is nothing that we've approved or agreed to. So I'll just leave it at that, and I welcome anything additional that you send. I get 300 emails a day, so sometimes when you just send me background information, it doesn't, I appreciate it. If you need me to send a reply and say thank you very much, but it doesn't necessarily sometimes say, your email is, here's some information I want you to consider. So I did see the email. I think because it's so premature, and I would get ready for lots of public comment. I actually thought that their first virtual public comment period was very useful. Could have been better, but they have so many more that are coming, and we'll have a bunch as well. So I'll just leave it at that. Next.
Mr. Chair, your final registered speaker for item 7 is Garrett Byrant.
For the record, Garrett F. Expirant, 87086. That's my inmate number. While I was waiting for 2 years in that jail to be deported to Guantanamo Bay, charged with urban terrorism. The joke is, I actually am. But then again, we were, because we were Army. And I just happened to be like my father. My father joined the Army in World War II, and he was an INS special agent. His job was to go into all the ghettos in New Jersey, New York, and Chicago, and roust all of the suspect Nazis that were blowing up ships that were sitting in harbors. Needless to say, that was not a very pleasant job, but he did a really good job. He was a special agent, INS. When I joined the Army in 1968, I joined the Army National Guard, which at the time, Richard Nixon felt we were going to go into a nuclear war over the situations we were in with Vietnam. Now, I never went to Vietnam. I cannot tell you that I did go to the jungles, and I don't know where I was, but I wasn't legally in any of these places, but I was there. So the long and short is that the Army National Guard had appointed me special. I had secret clearance. My job was to protect New York City from incoming MiG jets that were suspect. I manned a radar unit on a hillside in Livingston, New Jersey, and I had secret clearance. So I was able to fire weapons into the city of New York. They were nuclear capable, but we didn't have any nukes on our rockets. Our rockets were defensive rockets, and we were waiting for 3 MiG jets to actually come into New York. True story. As I was leaving, they were starting construction on the World Trade Center. We were thinking at the time, Nixon told us they're going to take out the Empire State Building, which oddly enough, back in World War II was my father's headquarters. He had an office in the Empire State Building with INS, Immigration and Naturalization Services. That was an offshoot of J. Edgar Hoover's idea of trying to get all kinds of people out there looking for bad guys, and that was our job. So the bottom line, I got real quick, is that when I got together, back in 1988, I got together with Jeff Ryan, he was a combat veteran in the Air Force, and I'm a combat veteran too. But we got together and created what you guys know as St. Matthew's House. But that's a half-hour trick to tell you how I did that one, because I had help from a lot of people. Owning the land helps, but trying to get all you guys, they got to give you a fire station and all kinds of cool stuff. But it's there. Thank you very much for letting me share that with you. Really quick, though, my business card says, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Edmund Burke, thank you.
Mr. was mistaken. Hard to believe. We do have someone on Zoom for this item, H. Michael Mogul. Mr. Mogul, you're being prompted to unmute yourself at this time. If you'll do so. We need a gong. And there he is. Mr. Mogul, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Mogul. I'm a professional meteorologist, a critical thinker, and a nearly 20-year Collier County resident. Today, I want to talk briefly about development in a general sense. Mr. LaCastro has provided me my introduction. I thank him for that. Earlier, he noted that drainage at the sports complex and other areas is not necessarily doing what it was intended to do. He stated, quote, beware flooding. I've been stating that at Collier County Commissioner meetings for several years. He suggested that the drains might not be up to the current task, for example, grading or drainage. I contend the issue goes far, far beyond this. We need to be examining the impact of urbanization and the paving over of Collier County and getting some statistics on what our total impervious land cover is. We are also losing tree cover. So I ask, does Collier County have maps, tables, and other data that defines the current and historical impervious cover over the county? And if we can't do this county-wise, maybe we can do it by commissioner areas. If we don't look at the impervious cover we have now and where we've come from, we may be reading about Naples instead of Fort Lauderdale during the next heavy rainstorm. Are we also looking at how development impacts natural areas? I'm a member of the Audubon Corkscrew Preserve. I'm not a far right or left environmentalist, but I'm a pragmatist. So I queried the folks about the encroaching development on Immokalee Road as the road starts its northward curve. There's a huge shopping area being put in there. They were emphatic that development is already impacting the preserve and the animal life that's there, and development is just getting started in earnest. Finally, what are the guidelines for community information meetings? Who gets notified? How are the meeting times and meeting locations determined? One meeting several months ago was held almost 10 miles from the proposed development site, and would-be attendees had to travel on Collier Boulevard during rush hour during season. Further, notifications seem to be limited to the area immediately adjacent to the development site. Yet there are systematic issues with how these meetings are publicized, the issues among different communities, and nobody has any interaction of what's going on across the entire county. Divide and conquer is not the way to ensure community involvement. I would like to see technology put to work with an interactive map showing all the areas where development is being planned and being progressed, including meetings, reviews, etc., so community members and organizations can fully be part of the process of development in the county. This can be done. We have the technology. All we have to do is make a commitment to share the information so the community at large, not just the areas where one piece of development is taking place, can be part of a larger picture. I urge you to do that. I will leave my comments concerning the Army Corps of Engineers study and traffic until the meeting tomorrow night and the meeting in 2 weeks, respectively. Thank you for your time.
That truly was our final speaker, sir.
Okay. Next.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 9A. This item requires that all participants be sworn in and provide ex parte disclosure by commission members. This is a recommendation to approve an ordinance rezoning a portion of Justin's Village to increase density by amending ordinance number 04-41 as amended, the Collier County Land Development Code, which includes the comprehensive zoning regulations for the unincorporated area of Collier County, Florida, by amending the appropriate zoning atlas maps or maps by changing the zoning classification of the herein described real property from residential multifamily 6 zoning district with a Gateway Triangle zoning overlay residential subdistrict to a residential multifamily 12 zoning district with a Gateway Triangle zoning overlay residential subdistrict to allow up to 28 total multifamily dwelling units with an affordable housing agreement on 2.33 plus or minus acres of property located south of lots 6 and 18 Breeze of Calusa subdivision on Justin's Way, approximately 500 feet south of Calusa Avenue, in Section 11, Township 50, South, Range 25 East, Collier County, Florida, and by providing an effective date. Before we swear everybody in, just wanted to let everyone know that this item originally was scheduled for the summary agenda due to it having a unanimous vote of the Planning Commission and no public opposition at that time. But when we were preparing the agenda, we did receive a request from the East Naples Civic Association for this item to be pulled to the regular agenda where it appears now.
Okay. Let's have Ms. Lewis swear everybody in, and then I'll go for ex parte from all the commissioners.
I do.
Okay. Commissioner Kowal, have any?
Yes, I have one meetings on the export.
Meetings? Okay. Commissioner Saunders?
Yes, I've had some meetings and correspondence concerning the project.
Okay. Commissioner Hall?
Just a meeting.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, I have meetings and emails.
Yeah, and I've had meetings and emails. Okay, let's proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. For the record, my name is Dwight Nadeau. I'm providing Urban Land Use Policy Counsel to the petitioner, St. Matthew's House, or SMH Properties of Southwest Florida, as well as to the petitioner's agent, Hagen Engineering. I am a registered lobbyist, as is Engineer Hagen. As the manager identified, this petition was on the summary agenda up until the printing of the agenda. It was recommended by staff for approval. We did get a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. We are prepared to make a robust presentation for you this morning. If you choose to do so, perhaps there may be some public speakers that may want to present. So we really leave it up to you.
Yeah, let me jump in here. First of all, as our county manager said, anything that's on the summary or consent agenda, if she gets opposing views or the planning commission doesn't vote unanimously, then she reserves the right to move it to the regular agenda, and then we all get to meet with her yesterday, the day prior, so if we have an issue with it, any commissioner can have a conversation, and none of us did. You know, having said that, I actually was surprised that there was opposition, so I guess, you know, unless it's out of order, before you dive into a big presentation, I'd like to hear from the people that suggested we pull it off of the what was it? It was on summary agenda. If you know, if they're here.
I have no registered speakers for this item, sir.
Okay, I mean, you know, part of, you know, county government is, you know, we're by the people, for the people. They have time at the podium, and you know, I guess I open the floor up to my colleagues and see if any particular commissioner maybe has issues, maybe that an opposing viewpoint reached out to them and they thought it had merit. So I see a couple lit up. So I'll start with Commissioner Hall, and then Commissioner McDaniel, you're on deck.
I don't have anything in opposition to it. I was going to make a motion to approve it. And it's, the petitioner owns all the property in the neighborhood. He's just asking to put some extra density in the neighborhood. And I thought it was a great idea.
Second.
Commissioner Saunders.
I was just going to second the motion. They've got plenty of protection and separation from the surrounding property owners, both vegetative and as a fence. And it's also a gated community. So the concern of some of the neighbors was that there'll be people wandering in and out of that project and just wandering into the neighborhood's yards. And they'd have to come out the front gate and walk around the street to do that. So I don't have any issues with this.
If I could ask the St. Matthew's House CEO to come forward, Steve Broder, I just had a question for you, sir. Something came to my attention from, I believe, I don't know if it was the folks or the person or whatever who had the opposition. It may or may not have been. I got it sort of third person, but they attributed an exact quote to you. And I think I've worked with you long enough that I was flabbergasted if you would ever say this, but if you did, I'd like you to correct the record. But what they basically said was quote, the reason why we need all this additional density and we need to build all these additional units is because we've been, quote, this is the quote, importing homeless into Collier County. And so we're not taking care of our own. We just have an influx of homeless that are being imported here to use our services. And although even when I've, you know, for 4 years, I've gone out with the Wounded Warriors out into the woods looking for the veterans and even civilian homeless people. You meet people that have moved here from other places, but, you know, I never met anybody that said, oh, they raced over here because they didn't have any resources in Daytona, and so they were coming here. And I'm not saying that those people don't exist, but, you know, somebody attributed the quote that you, and saying that you said it, and you know, is that a true statement, or was that taken out of context? Because, you know, I truly would like to know if we are going to maximum density and being as supportive as we are at the county, because you feel like that the numbers here are artificially inflated due to people that are racing to this area to utilize your services as non-Collier County citizens. I mean, what's your response to that?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Bruder, for the record, CEO of St. Matthew's House. I never would have said anything like that. That's not factual at all. It's a misrepresentation. And when we talk about this project, it's not for homeless individuals. It's for people that want to live and work in Naples. So they pay rent. We manage the 11 single-family homes that are there currently. We will manage the entire facility and keep it really to, I would say, high standards for the community. So yeah, it's not for homeless people. It's people that are working. They have incomes, they have checking accounts, they have savings accounts, they pay their rent, and we hope that you'll vote in favor of this project.
Okay, and I wanted to give you the floor to clear that up and get it on the record, because I think some of the misconception out there by people that have maybe never liked St. Matthew's House, it's easy to say you're a soup kitchen, you provide shelter for homeless people, which we already know that. You also don't provide shelter for people who are who won't agree to live by your rules and be off of drugs. And, you have a very specific filter. So it's not a matter of everybody just gets sort of a free lunch and walks in the door. And I've gone on record before saying I lived all over the country, and every place I live would kill to have a St. Matthew's House. So if we need to paint out of the lines a little bit or increase density or do some things that are going to bring this very valuable resource to our community to take care of our own, I'm a champion for it. So I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. What's next?
Chair, if, before we go to the land use, which I would suggest 9B is the East Naples overlay and 9C as the RF MUD, we might take a couple of these agenda items that are under 11, either the beach berm or the Ashbrit contract. We can knock those out before lunch and let those folks
Perfect.
go.
Yeah, let's take those just in order as you gave them. Start with the berm.
All right, so we're starting with item 11A is a recommendation to ratify the county manager's awarding of invitation to bid number 23-8111, Collier 2023 Emergency Berm Truck Haul and Construction, Reach A, to Phillips and Jordan, Inc., in the amount of $6,723,041.50. Collier Emergency Berm Truck Haul and Construction, Reach B, to Earth Tech Enterprises, Inc., in the amount of $8,422,934.50. Authorize the chairman to sign the attached agreements, approve the attached budget amendments, and make a finding that this item promotes tourism. And Mr. Andrew Miller, Manager of Coastal Zone Management, will answer questions or present.
Commissioner McNabb, do you want to open with some comments, sir?
Well, I was going to make a motion for approval.
Okay.
And then I had a comment once we got to a vote. If you want a presentation, that's fine too. So
I would second the motion. I got all the details I needed yesterday. Does any other commissioner have a question or anything? Okay.
I do have a comment for you
Okay.
all. And
Okay.
the comment
Go ahead,
is what I would like to see going forward is it's been brought to my attention by several of the folks who actually live on the beach that maybe we engage with the botanical gardens, as the city of Naples has, for recommendations and availability of plantings for stabilization so that the sand doesn't just wash away. That was the comment that I'd like to see. I know that this was a jam-up job to get the beach renourished and protect us in the next upcoming hurricane season, but I'd also like to see an influence of plantings to better stabilize the beachheads as well. So with that, I'm good.
Okay. So I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Sir, while I've got you at the podium, you're our main button for coastal zone management, correct?
That's correct. Andy Miller, for the record.
The citizens that were here before saying you guys were scraped off of the committee that included the Army Corps. Were you in here? Is that a correct statement? Were you part of a working group and somehow got kicked to the curb? That's what they were inferring, and that's the first time I had heard that.
The Coastal Advisory Committee is still going to be involved to some extent. I think there is a new task force. I'm not exactly sure.
Let me help a little.
Okay.
So the board gave direction a couple of meetings ago to form essentially an ad hoc citizens group. It doesn't take away the things that our Tourist Development Council or our CAC will see at the appropriate time. They're also able to attend those meetings and get information from staff and get updates from staff, just like they would on any project. The other thing, just to correct the record a little bit, is those drawings that we're seeing out there, I've seen them on Facebook. Those were not generated by the Corps. So that's some other groups that have been taking the old Corps, some of the old information from the Corps, the prior Corps project, and the point that it got to that had a lot of hardened structural features, and they have animated those for effect. The Corps is not proposing anything right now because they've gone back and regrouped, and now we're coming forward and looking at all of this work again. And they received the message loud and clear from Collier County the last time that our tolerances for large walls and floodgates is limited, if any. So this idea that the Corps is generating this whole, we're going to wall off the whole county is not accurate.
I would just say that I attended the Zoom meeting and was on it for pretty much the whole time. That would have been really strong if they would have opened with that, because the inference through the whole presentation, I mean, and the plethora of questions that people were typing were all about the walls, the moats, the gates, and all that. And if they would have opened with that, and even the slides that they used, if they would have even shown that slide and say, these are dated, these are old, and separated rumor from fact quickly. So I think we have another meeting coming up at the South Regional Library. That should, that suggestion needs to go back to them strongly. I'm sure that they would appreciate anything we can do to tighten up their presentation with some lessons, especially since it's going to be an in-person presentation.
We'll speak with them about that. And lastly, remember is that this isn't, so while this is our money collectively as taxpayers of the United States, there's not local money.
Not county.
It's not local money, but in the end, we are the non-federal sponsor, and nothing goes without your approval. And all you've given them approval to do is start this back up, to look at it and provide information. In the end, there's a whole nother pathway for a locally preferred plan that if we can't come to agreement on the way that the traditional method, there's a whole nother path we can go down. So no decisions have been made.
Okay, great. So I think we had a motion, a second. I think we approved this unanimously, correct?
I just wanted to.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And I do have two people let up, Commissioner Kowal and then Commissioner McDaniel.
I would just like to, whoever's out there listening is watching right now, that from my constituents, because I think either it was Wednesday evening or I think it was Thursday morning, one of these independent groups that had like an official name and made it look all official, they actually took a full-page ad out in Naples Daily News. And when that hit there with these drawings and these things that weren't really true, that we've seen none of this, and they put it out that way and trying to look official, my correspondences blew up. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that these people are not affiliated in no way what we are dealing with right now. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Yeah, and just to briefly report or repeat what Commissioner Kowal said, it's important that folks be mindful of the information sources that you receive and where that information in fact comes from. There's a lot of competing factors out there and folks that are putting out a lot of propaganda that just is not true. So with that, be very wary of the information sources, and just because it says it doesn't. That's one of the reasons why we established an advisory committee, an ad hoc committee appointed by this board to officiate at these public meetings and to help herd the information chain so that the truth is in fact told. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's next?
We'll get a vote on it or no?
Yeah. So I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Next.
If we can, let's go ahead and take the Ashford item. This is item 16C5, now 11G. This is a recommendation to approve the second amendment to agreement number 15-6365 for FEMA acceptable debris removal for disaster-generated debris with Ashbrit Inc. doing business as Ashbrit Environmental to increase the fee schedule rate 7% effective on the renewal date of January 12th, 2023, and authorize the chairman to sign the amendment. Ms. Sandra Herrera is here to answer questions or start the presentation. We also have our staff from Public Utilities in the room, depending on your questions.
Commissioner Saunders?
Just a couple quick questions. When Hurricane Irma came through, Ashbrit requested a substantial increase in the fees that they were under contract to provide, and we said no, and they went ahead and did all the collections based on the contract that was in place. And part of the rationale was that FEMA would not reimburse the county for any increase in the fees once a storm has come through. If we had increased those fees, the Collier County taxpayers would have paid 100% of that increase in the cost versus paying about 10% of the cost. Hurricane Ian comes through, and I think Ashbrit asked for the same thing, and I believe we said no. So there was no additional burden on the taxpayers, and staff is to be commended for that position. This 7% only reflects the next storm going forward. It has nothing to do with Hurricane Ian. I just want to make sure of that. Then I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, got a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Do I have any public comments, Mr. Miller? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, sir. All right.
Not time yet. Did you want the public comment now, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Your speaker is Brittany Castillo.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, staff, and leadership that's here. I'm Brittany Perkins Castillo, for the record, Chief Executive Officer of Ashbrit, and for just the record and those that aren't aware. So Ashbrit is a government solutions provider specializing in emergency management, logistics, and disaster debris removal. We're actually the national leader in disaster debris removal. But even though we're a national company, we're South Florida based. We've got team members, family members that are longtime residents of Collier County, and we're a very proud partner of Collier County, particularly in disaster debris removal, but certainly other services since 2005. I've been here today. The board of our company, myself as CEO, and the leadership of our company, it's important that Collier County knows that this is a contract and a relationship that's of utmost importance to our company. I'm happy to answer questions on the CPI, but Commissioner Sanders, if I may, respectfully clarify, use the word substantial increase. I believe we asked for the CPI increase, so looking just at Hurricane Ian, our contract allows for consumer price index increases annually upon contract extension. Admittedly, our company neglected to do that last year, so we asked for it when Hurricane Ian was coming. It was an administrative error. Staff held to the contract that you have to do it upon award. We did work, and the item that's here is per the contract that allows for the consumer price index increase per the contract terms. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, I'm the one that actually asked for this to be brought up for discussion, and the rationale for that was this is an after-the-fact adjustment to an existing contract that's in place, and I'm concerned that maybe there should have been some kind of a rebid to go forward with it. And I understand that you folks were remiss in renegotiating in advance of Ian, but to come back to us after the fact and for us to award this without going through the public process is concerning to me.
Absolutely. So I think a point of clarification, which I'll add, and obviously staff can speak to. Yeah, the contract allows for the CPI.
Yes, I'll respond to that question. Yes, the contract allows for that, so there's no need to rebid pursuant to the ordinance along with the contract that the board had approved. There is a mechanism to go through the renewal process and at that time afford the contractor an opportunity to request an increase. Obviously, they requested an increase CPI at, I believe, a 9.9. We negotiated that down to 7%. So there is no need to rebid.
Okay.
Commissioner, if I can respond, and I know this is well known by the commissioner, so it's primarily for the record. In our industry, and of course across, since this is a pre-COVID contract, I believe 2016, so it's customary in our industry across the state of Florida. If you looked at your neighbor counties, other cities within the state at the state level, CPI at minimum modifications are happening for similar contracts across the county and within the county on disaster and emergency management related services. And so that 7% is the year-over-year amount that's allowed in the contract. That said, if the contract were to be rebid at your direction or staff's, we'd obviously be looking forward to the opportunity of resubmitting.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, and I'm going to second Commissioner Saunders' motion for approval with the comment that, this isn't a reflection on Ashbrit or what you folks have done for our community throughout the years. Both he and I have been here through Irma and Ian. The efforts that Ashbrit has done for Collier County has been stellar, to say the least. I mean, we couldn't hardly have asked for much more, and your flexibility and how you've done what you've done has been off the chart for our community. The concern I had was the process, the after the fact, the retroactive respects of this request is where I actually had concerns when I was reading through the backup data, and which is why I asked for it to be brought up, and I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, and very much appreciate those words, says it's critically important that we are a great partner to Collier County year-round, a good corporate citizen, actively engaged in the community, beyond obviously planning for and responding to disaster events. And I'd be remiss to not say that it's because of the phenomenal staff that you have that manage this contract that we're able to, first and foremost, safely, and secondly, very efficiently manage cleanup after disaster events in Collier County.
Okay, I've got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What else can we squeeze in before 12:30?
We could take item 11E, which is the Marco Island Conservation Collier parcel.
Sure.
Okay, this item was item 16C7, moved to item 11E. It was an item continued from the December 10th, 2022 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to approve an agreement for sale and purchase with Whisk Investment Company, LLC, for 0.39 acres under the Conservation Collier Land Acquisition Program at a cost not to exceed $432,600. This item did appear on the consent agenda originally, was moved to the regular agenda at staff's request. This was one of the parcels back in December that was discussed. It had some environmental issues as well as some ownership issues, and thought it would be prudent to bring it onto the top of the agenda here just to have a little discussion.
One of the things I asked Ms. Patterson yesterday, and if you remember at our last commissioner meeting, I talked about a spreadsheet that, and actually I was hoping we would all have it by now. So Mr. Finn, that spreadsheet that you showed me that showed all the parcels of land, let's get that, remember we made a couple of tweaks to it. Let's get that updated and get it in the hands of all the commissioners. I mean, I was remiss in sort of pinging you about it a few days after the last meeting because I mean, it just needed minor changes. But one of the things I said to Ms. Patterson is I'd really like those parcels to be bundled for us, and we're not going to be approving these 1Z, 2Z every time. This one apparently is unique, so that's why it's on here. But what should be coming to us in the future are big chunks of parcels, which would be on this spreadsheet that Mr. Finn's going to get to us by tomorrow or as soon as possible, because it'll help us track and check off the ones we are approving. I know I got Commissioner McDowell. You want to talk first, or you want to hear his presentation? What works for you?
Presentation, or I'll just make a motion.
Yeah, well, I guess just give us the short version. Why is this one unique? Why are we, why was it pulled forward for discussion? I sort of know the answer from yesterday's pre-brief, but for the record and for the benefit of everybody, Mr. Finn, give us the short version as to why this one's unique, if it is.
Happy to do it, Mr. Chairman. Edward Finn, Deputy County Manager. I'm going to allow Summer to do the presentation, but I'm just going to have a couple of remarks. And yes, that spreadsheet is in process, being fact-checked in terms of relative to the appraised amount.
Okay.
We want to make sure those are right. That sheet does exist. There's a link currently to the current version that's live on the Conservation Collier website. That covers all of the cycles that are currently in play, which is 10, 11A, and 11B. So there's a large number of properties.
The one that's on their site, did it make the changes? We talked about my office that would make this sheet a little bit more valuable to us.
We're working towards that.
Okay.
I can't tell you.
And maybe just send us the link, and then as you continue to make
Happy to do
changes and you say we bought it, we didn't buy it, we bought it, we could always plug into that link ourselves to get an updated sheet. So that works. Okay. All right.
If I may, just a couple of quick comments on this property. What makes this property a little bit unique, one is the environmental issues or the environmental desirability. So there's gopher tortoises on this property, an extensive number. This came before the board once already in one form or another, and it was delayed. What the board probably wants to consider is the fact that this is a relatively small parcel in a single-family residential area, and it is one of, I think, a total of 6 Marco parcels that are outstanding that are similar in characteristics in that they're all single-family residential lots. With that, I'm going to allow Summer to come up and present this item, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, Summer Arake, Conservation Collier Program Supervisor. And before you today, we have the Whisk property. Troy, I'm going to take it back to the first slide, unless you had it on this. Okay. Thank you. So I have the purchase agreement for your consideration for the Whisk investment property on Marco Island. The property owner applied to sell their property in July of 2021 as part of Cycle 10. This parcel meets criteria of the program in that it is urban and environmentally sensitive. The property has 56 potentially occupied tortoise burrows, which would result in approximately 28 actual gopher tortoises, because each tortoise uses about 2 burrows. And here's a picture of a gopher tortoise hatchling that was right in front of the property. Okay, so as you all know, there is some history to this property, and I will review that right now. This property was on the Cycle 10 list that came before you in January of 2022. And then by July of 2022, there was quite a large list that we had. We obtained the appraisal, made an offer, brought the purchase agreement to you all on December 13th. However, that was continued at the request of 2 commissioners. The feedback that we received in a companion item that was on the agenda that day led us to believe that you needed some further information regarding the appraisal. The first appraisal that was obtained in July did include the gopher tortoises. Those were backed out of the appraisal. However, we did obtain an updated appraisal, and since then, the sales on Merco have increased. So the appraisal went up $10,000. So there is an adjacent property that may benefit from this acquisition that is located on the back of the property on Dogwood Drive, and it is owned by a relative of the seller. That was a concern that you all had in general discussions, not related to this specific property back in December. And considering this information, staff offered the first appraised value of $419,000 again recently in the last month. That would be the lower of the 2 values. However, the seller would not accept an offer of less than $429,000, and a contract was prepared to present to you for consideration. And that's why we are here today, to request you to approve an agreement for sale and purchase with Whisk Investment Company for 0.39 acres. The total price, including closing, would be $432,600.
So we're getting it for $429, but the $432 is the other added little extras, right? So, okay. I got 3 commissioners lit up. I don't know if they're making a motion or they have a question, but Commissioner McDaniel, you're first, sir.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Do you have public speakers?
I have someone online who said only if you have questions of her, Kathleen Reed Noblet.
She is one of the property owners that's part of this investment company.
The commissioners that are lit up, so is Commissioner McDaniel, besides the motion, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Hall, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Saunders, any questions?
A quick question for the county attorney. This is obviously a very valuable piece of property. It's important to all of Collier County, but especially to the folks of Marco Island. But let's just hypothetically roll the clock forward 10, 15 years from now. Let's just assume something happens and those 28 gopher tortoises are no longer there. And there is no environmental value at that point. Can the county declare that as property no longer needed and sell it?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to make sure that if that did happen, and it probably would not happen, but if it did, that we could determine that it was surplus property for sale. So, Mr. Chairman, probably your district, you probably should make the motion.
Commissioner Cowell, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, I remember back in December and a lot of things were raised and, we were, venturing into this where, we wanted to be more diligent with the taxpayers' dollars. And if I remember correctly, there was more to this particular property. We wanted more answers on the history of, do our due diligence on this person that was selling or the previous owner. And the questions I had was like, did they ever have this on the market? Was there people ever interested? Was there bids in the past and then they realized it was too expensive to relocate the turtles to viably use this for a home, which typically is on that street or homes, and I don't think those answers were ever really answered. That's what I was seeking back in December, that type of investigation or that type of due diligence to see, are they just dumping this lot that they know they can't sell to anybody else? And every time we sit here, the price keeps going up.
So I will defer to real property. I believe that the appraisal did address that it may have been listed at one point. Is that correct? For actually a very similar value. I'll bring Roosevelt up for that.
I am Roosevelt Leonard, the review appraiser. Typically, when a parcel goes out for appraisal, the appraisers do a 5-year history on sales agreements on previous. So, and also too, sales history of a parcel may not be considered as part of the appraised value, because what you're doing is taking the current market value of that particular parcel and comparing it against comparables. So it's just the same as if when people are flipping properties, you look at the prior sale, but that has nothing to do with what the current market is for that parcel.
Maybe you misunderstood my question. I wasn't really referring to the process of finding an appraised value of a property and what method you use or don't use. My question was there any due diligence on a history of this ever being sold, or maybe it actually had a contract at one time, or was it ever dropped because of the cost of relocating the turtles? Because it was such a burden for a developer or an investor to buy this lot. I guess that's more what my question was, not so much how you come to the actual price of the appraisal.
So that consideration may have been taken into fact when the Conservation Collier provides their screening program, and that part of due diligence, I believe, is taken into consideration during that part, but that's not part of the appraisal function. So, and again, part of what the appraisal process was to start bringing right up front all the mitigation factors that contribute to the value.
So in your part of it, you say you go back 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Can you answer this? In 5 years, has this property ever been on the market to sell? Just
according to the history, that the parcel was not, as far as what the appraiser calls, changed arms or changed hands.
I didn't ask that question.
Right. So as far as whether it was on the market or not, I really don't know that. I can go by what the due diligence of what the appraiser said as far as the 5-year sales history. That's usually what we go by.
Okay.
I got 2 other commissioners lit up, I assume, with questions. Commissioner McDaniel, and then
I want
Commissioner Hall.
Roosevelt back.
Okay.
To clarify real quick, the value, the price that you see here includes the mitigation of the gopher tortoises. So the actual value of the property is $625,000. Then you back out for the gopher tortoises.
That was exactly my question. I wasn't able, there was an enormous amount of superfluous information included in this appraisal. Well, I'm sure it wasn't totally superfluous, but there was a lot of information, and I wasn't able to see the estimate of the cost of the mitigation that was appropriated for this site. Could you help me get there?
Go ahead. No. I was just going to say, it is in the executive summary in the 4th paragraph under considerations, but I'll let Roosevelt speak to the actual appraisal itself.
So what happens is that as previously stated, the appraiser took into consideration the 28 gopher tortoise. And with that amount, there was, again, the mitigation was $196,000. And that part was taken right off the top of the appraisal. So that's where you get your adjustment for the value, which brought it down to $25 per square feet.
And Commissioner Hall, did you have a question?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So basically, Conservation Collier has taxpayer money to buy property that never will be, that'll be preserved as conservation. And when I look at this lot, I look at it as a conservation lot. There's 28 turtles, there's burrowing owls, it's basically undevelopable very easily. If it is developed, it has to, all those animals have to be remediated. They have to be put into a safe place. It's at the top of the market. The appraisal's high. It's gone higher. To me, it looks like we have a property that's already acting as what we want to make it with an extra $500,000. So I'm sorry that the seller didn't want to sell at a lower offer, but, you know, maybe they should have considered that. I'm not going to be a proponent of passing this on this. I'm going to let it stay what it is. It's already is a conservation lot right there in the middle of town.
I'll just add, so this is in my district. Every lot that comes to us is going to be a conservation lot. I mean, it's going to have something on it. So that's, I mean, then we would buy nothing then. And I'll preface this by saying also, whether I'm for or against how the whole Conservation Collier program works, it's irrelevant because the taxpayers passed it by unanimous decision. I think we have, what, 25 million, more or less, to be spending on these lots. And every lot that we are going to consider is going to be something that you could look at the aerial photo and go, well, why buy it? It's full of tortoises and burrowing owls. And I'm not trying to be an advocate for Conservation Collier, but the way that the program works is those are the lots that we buy, the ones that are, fully populated by endangered species. So I mean, with just to comment on your comment, Commissioner Hall, it's like every lot's going to be that way then, and then we would buy nothing, where the thought is looking at the lot and go, wow, it's so populated by endangered species. Let's lock this one into the Conservation Collier program, as the taxpayer said that they wanted to do, and let's buy it. And I will tell you, $432 for a Marco lot is pretty much fair market value. I know that seems like a lot, but and it's not a waterfront lot or anything, but you could make a case it's plus or minus, and I'm not a real estate expert, but it's plus or minus within the window of all non-waterfront lots. And the way this program is supposed to be supported by us is bring us lots that are fully populated with endangered species, and those are the ones that we want to protect the most. I mean, at least that's my view. I don't know if and then we got somebody that should chime in.
Mr. Chair, Catherine Reed Noblet is online, and hearing your discussion, she would like to make a comment, if you don't mind. Catherine, you should be being prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. There you go. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to make a couple of comments. First, I can answer the question that this lot we had not placed it on the market over the last 10 years. And we've been waiting since 2021 because we are interested in conservation. This lot has been undeveloped. And so it has a lot. That's one of the reasons it was on the A1 list, is that it has a lot of value for conservation. It has a lot of people, they call it Tortoise Hill. They come and look for the gopher tortoises on Marco at our property. And if the county commissioners don't buy it, then we will be selling it. The house to the as you're facing the lot to the right has been put up in about the last 10 years. And so this one there's the lot down in front on Barfield. The houses are going in. And so it will either go to conversation or it'll go to housing. So that's part of the decision that you as county commissioners have to make. My parents are very involved. They're 95 and almost 96. So they will not reap any benefit in their advanced age to whether this lot becomes a house or stays a conservation. I will say that they're very interested in conservation, and they have made arrangements in their property for it to go to conservation. So in essence, you would have two adjoining lots that would become in conservation over time. I can't exactly, due to their wishes, explain that a little further, but I can tell you that the agency has paperwork that says that they will get it.
Ma'am, this is Commissioner
Do you have any
LaCastro. Can you hear
questions for
me?
me, commissioners?
Can you hear me? Ma'am, this is Commissioner LaCastro.
Yes.
If you all are so, and I mean this with respect, I really just want to get a clear answer. If your family is so environmentally focused, which I certainly applaud, why the back and forth over $10,000? I mean, I think that the program made a fair market value offer, and if, you know, when we hear it's rejected and then it comes back, it's 10,000 more, you know, we sit here as commissioners and we're trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and, you know, we don't want to jip you out of the value of that property, and we realize you can say no and put it on the market. And I can tell you, I live on Marco Island. There's a lot being built down from me that has probably dozens of burrowing owls on it, and they're about to all be scared off because a house is coming there. So I see it all the time, that a homeowner that's about to build a multi-million-dollar house could care less about the nickels and dimes in their estimation that it's going to take to relocate gopher tortoises and burrowing owls, especially since lots are disappearing very quickly. But why not just take the initial offer, and, you know, we wouldn't be sitting here right now with, you know, offers that all seem to be within plus or minus a few dollars, but we're having a debate because everything's been rejected initially. Or do I have part of that story incorrect?
I believe you have part of that story incorrect.
Okay.
The original appraisal, which was done back last in July, was for $419,000, and it included property on its comparables that were slightly over a year old before that, and you know the market went up a lot. And on that one 419 appraisal, there was a lot of weighting given to the older properties. And so then when Collier, the county commissioners, decided to in December to continue to you know, want to start changing the process and wanted to go back and reappraise the property, and lo and behold, prices have gone up a lot. And so now the appraisal is at 429. It's the appraisal that the commissioners asked for and got. And why should we, as we are an investment company, while we are interested in conservation, we are an investment company.
But was the 419 offered to you, and you or your company said no to the initial 419, or the ball got dropped somewhere?
When we were offered the 419 back in October, we accepted it then. Mm-hmm. And the Board of County Commissioners delayed and put it, or, you know, paused, delayed at the December Board of County Commissioners meeting when it was on the agenda there. They said, no, everything's, you know, we're going to go relook at the process. We want all these properties reappraised. And so that's what happened. You went and reappraised it, and it came in at 429. And now you're saying, oh, well, we want to go back to the old price because we don't like the new price that our appraisal gave.
No, I wasn't saying we're going back to.
Suffer?
I wasn't saying we're going back to the old price. I'm just trying to understand how the history of this transpired. We are the Board of County Commissioners, and I would say the way you characterized what we did in December isn't anything that I recall doing, but that's water under the bridge. We're here to decide $432,600 on this property, and either we do it or we don't. I support purchasing it, and I don't know, does this take three votes? I know we still have some more comment. Commissioner Cowell, sir, do you have some comments?
Hi, this is Commissioner Cowell. I would just like to thank you because you kind of answered the question I've been asking for some time. So you said this property hasn't been listed in the last 10 years for sale, and thanks for clarifying that for me. You know, You know, I know the 419, from your own words, from your own mouth, said was accepted back in October. And I'm trying to figure out, I mean, it wasn't that we wanted to reappraise properties to get different prices. In December, we were just saying that I think we have a position to negotiate on these prices because it would be a good stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars. It doesn't mean we're not going to purchase the properties, but I think we should do our due diligence. And just like anybody else, even in the private market, you know, sometimes people get lowballed and somewhere you meet in the middle, you know? So, I mean, I think the offer's 419 on the table, so, but
Well, the reappraisal was 429.
that's fine. Something's only worth something's willing, somebody's willing to pay for it.
Is the appraisal, and that was, when we signed up, we said we would accept your appraised price.
Okay.
And you appraised it at 429 based on more recent sales than sales from 2021.
Well, I think your feedback to us, at least is giving me some takeaways on our process over here, because that 419 should have been locked in. What we discussed here was lots that were appraised but had the same owner had adjacent property, or if there were any sort of unique circumstances on any of the properties, you know, and this would have been one of those where there's an adjacent property owned by the same group, investment company, or family. So what we wanted as commissioners was consideration to say it's not just a property out in the middle of the nowhere. It butts up against another property that the owner has. So they do get some advantage by us turning it over to Conservation Collier, and now they have an adjoining property that has just become a permanent park, basically. So if their appraisal is 419 to that family because they get a benefit from it, maybe they take 400 because they get a benefit, as opposed to a property that's in the middle of nowhere. That train already left the station. So I think my takeaway here is, you know, maybe there was some miscommunication on our part. I don't think it was anything on yours. I think you were just playing a waiting game. But unless we have any other questions, I mean, this is in my district. I'm by no means a real estate agent or a property appraiser, but this is what this program is supposed to protect, and these are the kind of lots that we're supposed to purchase. And to me, it makes it all that stronger that it's loaded with environmentally sensitive and environmentally protected species that I can tell you could easily be cleared if somebody wanted to buy that lot. The more expensive thing isn't clearing the birds and the tortoises. The more expensive thing is buying the lot. So unless anybody has an objection, I'd like to make a motion on this piece of property in my district that we approve the agreement for $432,600, which is inclusive 429, and then it's inclusive of other fees. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, failed. Commissioner Cole? I don't know if I heard everybody. You agreed or disagreed?
I disagree.
Okay, it fails 3-2. Okay, next.
Commissioners, you have time certain items starting at 2:30, so you want to consider.
Yeah, I think we're at a 12:30 break, so we want to come back at, what do y'all think? You think in an hour? Is an hour enough? 1:30? Okay. We'll come back at 1:30. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks.